We're live. It's nuts o'clock. We're in here. Bob nutting all over the place. How you feeling, Jay?
Farewell kisses to my daughter as she goes to bed, and farewell kisses or hello kisses to all of you. Yeah, it's no Jared tonight. It's Coley and Justin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
letting the stars shine. That's what a lot of people were saying in the background. Yeah, we got some trivia. We got some nugs. We've got game watching. We've got Red Sox Diamondbacks as, of course, the premier game of the night. Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, we've got what else we got? We got new episodes. We got a new episode of Baseball is Dead out yesterday. We have a new episode of Baseball is Dead coming tomorrow with a special guest feud participant. So that's very exciting.
Wow.
Continue our run there. That'll be fun. I'll say somebody whose paths you crossed with in the past. So
as the guest?
The guest for tomorrow's feud, you have crossed paths with this person.
Okay.
Man or lady in the past. Yep.
Interesting.
Professionally.
Terry Rozier's return.
To the feud.
To media.
Yeah, he thought BID feud would be the on-ramp for him to get back into the business. Did we forget to talk about Brewers and Dodgers on yesterday's pod? I'm going to say yes and also no, though. It was on the rundown for sure. Yesterday's podcast was a little bit disjointed, but I think also pretty good. It was a pretty good episode. If you forgive the omission of Brewers Dodgers recap, which I'm happy to do here. I don't know how much of the series that Coley caught, so I'm not going to put him on the spot and ask him to give me a breakdown of Brewers Dodgers. But I mean, I have lingering thoughts that we did not get to with the way that the pod just went yesterday. We just ended up prioritizing the Little League stuff because Dallas really wanted to talk about that before people left. And then Dallas and I were left to talk about Tommy John, which ended up taking up a much larger percentage of the podcast than I certainly anticipated. But you know, that's to me, it's a little bit of a cop out on the no Dodgers Brewers convo. So I do recognize that, but also you got to go where the people on the show want to go. And it was very clear that Dallas was passionate primarily about two things yesterday. And that was the Little League cheating scandals, plural, and Tommy John. And so I think that came out in the content that we did, the segments that on those. But yeah, you know, it is what it is.
Someone said the Brewers are a horribly run organization, according to Coley anyways. And I do remember that conversation from the offseason where I called them extremely cheap bastards, saying that they could be a lot better if they spent money. I sit here today, Jay, in front of you and stand by that take. I don't know if you have a differing opinion.
It is, I mean, no, on a basic level, no. I do think they are currently the gold standard for that market of team, that tier of market, performance-wise, I think. A trip further than like a competitive NLCS performance would probably help cement that a little bit, because as of right now, like teams like Cleveland and Tampa have still like made it further in the pursuit of a title.
Big time.
In Cleveland's case, multiple times. But yeah, I mean, I had to chuckle the other day, and this is no shade at T, obviously. I think that probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. But he was like very into the idea of Logan Henderson as the main trade piece in a Tarek Skubal trade if Skubal was going to end up on the Brewers. And I did have to laugh the other day that Logan Henderson pretty much just straight up outdueled Skubal like 1-1 in the game. I was more laughing from like the Brewers perspective where like, you know, they're just like, we'll just actually just keep the controllable young guy who might be like 80% as good as Skubal or something like that, but in a single game thing, like might be just as, it's not just as nasty, but you kind of, I think my point's kind of clear. Yeah, Bert Firkins, we're nothing, man.
Last year they went into the season with a rotation so short they had to trade with the Red Sox in order to acquire just a starting pitcher, which was not a major league caliber arm in Boston. And then he went on to go like 12-1 with the Brewers. So it was just like, okay, they're clearly able to go out and identify talent and get it to work, as they did again this year with Kyle Harrison. Like I don't deny that they're able to do that. My question is, like, why are they putting themselves in such a predicament where the season starts and their rotation is already too short to be able to go through multiple weeks of the season? That's my holdup. Like you can do both. This is not an either or situation. They are not. Yeah, they don't have to sit there and be like, well, we could either spend some money or trade a competitive balance B pick, which ends up, what's that, like $2 million in draft dollars, roughly 1.5 probably.
Yeah,
like that matters. You could argue it matters more to the Brewers than it does to the Red Sox. So that was not a small trade that they made last year. Weeks into the season, the Corbin Burns, like, they can sit here and be like, well, Burns has not pitched outside of Baltimore since they got rid of him. And of course, but at his peak, that's a guy I would want in my rotation. I don't think that's debatable. So it's like, is Joey Ortiz worth it? Like, I don't know that he is. DL Hall?
I think they have been, and this is, I think, to their credit, but I think they have been admittedly very good about like less who to cut bait on, because they're more or less cutting bait on everybody at some point, but like when to cut bait. Like they have not, I know Corbin Burns was, you know, a literal Cy Young winner at his peak, but I don't think they were like, it's not like it was completely crazy that the Brewers saw some things with Corbin Burns. And I'm sure my feed would note some strikeout and some swing and miss trends if I pulled, if the search for feature on Twitter worked at all. But there were some huge red flags there, and he's like the biggest ticket item that is, but like for the most part, every player who has left there has not really made them pay. Like they haven't been made to pay for not paying Adames or Corbin Burns, or I'm missing a pretty substantial recent example of this, but and the one guy, the two guys that they have chosen to kind of keep around, they timed those contract extensions exceptionally well in Christian Yelich in the previous era and Jackson Chourio in the current era.
Devin Williams.
Devin Williams. Yes. Another beautiful example of this for sure. Where they got those guys and will get those guys in the case of Chourio's, their entire peaks without ever paying actual star level money to those players. Like Yelich very well could have been a consecutive MVP winner on, bargain basement money for, relative to rest of league for an MVP winner. It was just, they've done a really, really good job with, if we're going to pinch pennies, like let's make sure to make the right decisions on who we're investing in and who we're cutting bait on. And obviously it's easy to say, yeah, we're going to invest long-term in the young position players, or young-ish in the case of Christian Yelich at the time, and not invest in the pitchers. I get that. But like, you got to time the position player contract too, or the negotiation, to where you can get them at a number that actually works for the Milwaukee franchise, and obviously also the player. Freddie Peralta was actually the example I was trying to think of. Josh Hader
I don't even think they could have predicted that he was going to be this bad this year.
No, but they did know internally, we do not want to pay this guy $150 million. And like basically anything from the Freddie Peralta deal now is found money for them, given how bad he is. Hader is probably like the most successful in his role example of a departure, but I can't think for 1 minute of, oh gosh, the Brewers really truly miss Josh Hader at $90 million. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's and I would say, like, I anecdotally, like, Cleveland was very good about this for a long period of time, and I don't know how great or if they've been quite as good recently. And I remember this is dating myself a little bit, but I remember when they gave Travis Hafner the contract, and separately when they made the Edwin Encarnacion free agent splash, and both of those for what they were, extension and free agent signing, were like big fucking deals in the history of Cleveland baseball. And both of those were like almost instantaneous disasters. And like, I think Edwin might have been a sub replacement level player for Cleveland in the end. And I think that was like a $75 million contract. I'm just going off of memory, but yeah, it's, you can have 8 or 10 hits in a row, and all it takes to derail things sometimes is 1 or 2 significant misses. Like if the Yelich contract doesn't hit, if he's not the player that he is on that deal, even the quote unquote diminished version, who is still a very good player, like that, it probably doesn't work the same way in Milwaukee. And similarly, if Jackson Chourio is not actually a star moving forward and is more like a 310 on base percentage guy who has like his moments or whatever, then that's a huge turning. Yeah, that's a directional shift for Milwaukee. Where's Jerry? He's doing Red Sox stuff tonight.
Mm-hmm. Raising money for pediatric cancer.
Yeah.
With
so you got a fucking problem with that?
Yeah.
Anybody got a fucking problem with that? Just kidding. I'm not, though. You know.
Roman homer that ties the amount he hit in major leagues this year. 3 at bats in so far. Pretty good.
I'm excited. Yep. Need him.
Yeah, I was thinking about it earlier today. Last year, obviously, he gets called up, middle second half of the season. I can't remember the exact date, but he gets hurt, so he doesn't even finish the season. This year, starts the season, gets hurt a month in, is going to come back for the last month. Next year, who knows how many games there are going to be. His first full season may not be until 2028.
It is interesting how there is still, like, if he gets, obviously it seems like his return is imminent. There's still enough meat on the bone of the season where, like, more or less the whole narrative on Roman Anthony's season can be written from here on out. Like nobody will really talk about, how he's, brittle, or I haven't really dipped into the more salacious or gossipy stuff with him that I've seen floating around, because I don't give a shit. But none of that will be remembered if, he comes in and delivers big time down the stretch. They get the wild card. He delivers in the postseason against the Yankees, stuff like that. Do I have an opinion on the historic Yard Goat season? I'm going to hand up. Was unaware it was historic going on.
Aren't they
I
all?
I haven't made my way to the park this year. I know I have said multiple times on this stream that I was going to. We just haven't done it. But I didn't know they were. I'm not tracking minor league wins and losses. I'm just going to be honest. So what is historic about their season?
Most teams aren't.
Yeah, I'm not. It's a blind spot for me, Whereas T, I don't know. He never does this. He literally never does this stream, except for
Is
the trade deadline stream. But that was
is he
something different.
invited?
I would. Yes. I mean, he knows we do it. He was talking about it on the meeting earlier. He knows it was happening.
True. He is generally aware of the program.
Yeah. My understanding is he's doing the social media accounts while we're doing this.
I've heard that excuse before as well.
Which is fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Hunter is tracking wins and losses, but Hunter,
fine.
you know damn well that the Red Sox aren't. The Red Sox specifically aren't. And I do question that thought process. Like, I understand player development should be more important, but I would also argue part of player development would be like winning games. Or at least attempting to.
I would say Dallas would probably agree wholeheartedly with that idea.
I could see that. Yeah,
just
T
the
is
idea
fired.
that everything is kind of like a exhibition or showcase mentality, as opposed to like a, you know, we're playing a game with a purpose here,
right?
And we're all trying to pull in the same direction, sort of thing. By the way, Fernando Tatis homered. I'm not sure if you saw that. That is his 6th homer in his last 13 games. He had 8 homers in his first 112 games this season. So something of a turnaround here happening for Fernando Tatis.
When was his first? How many games in was his first? Like 60 games?
His first homer was it was game number 56. That's tough.
I was right there. Yeah, people were losing their minds about that.
A lack of homers through 56 games. I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's fair, though.
Zero's a jarring number.
It is. It's too few to cut it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's with like now it's happening with Vladdy, just at home. That does feel peculiar. We're over a calendar year now, right?
Yeah, it was. I think it was yesterday was the day since his last home run, non-playoff.
I was gonna say that does make it like a little different.
Bit of a caveat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like they played 3 playoff games and they got bounced. Like he had himself a decent run there in October.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to look at Tatis a little differently, he now has 14 homers in his last 70 games after 0 homers in his first 55 games. So
pretty good.
Yeah.
Someone said, did I miss Marte talk? We haven't spoken about Starlin Marte yet. Probably wasn't going to come up. If we're being honest.
Marte talk.
But
what did he was designated?
Ketel Marte.
Well, Starling was actually designated though
today,
like 2 days. No, like within the last 48 hours. I didn't see that. I didn't see the question, so I thought it's funny though that Ketel Marte has been squarely in the news, and you said, "Are we going to talk Marte?" And I was like, "Yep, Starling, man, designated dude." Like,
yeah, no, I mean that stinks. I like Starling Marte. I also did like Ketel Marte, and he just doesn't seem to like the Diamondbacks. This is at least the 3rd time in the last 12, 13 months he's either just like vanished or someone's put out a story that he doesn't like playing baseball for the Diamondbacks or something along those lines. And it's what, like, you can't always play. It feels very, to me at least, maybe I'm too close to it, very much like the Devers situation with arguably more to point to towards the player than with the Devers situation in Boston. But just in terms of being like, he hates playing. And then you look up and he played, I think at the point Nightingale put that out earlier this year, he had missed like 3 total games on the season at that point.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it feels salacious. It feels like the team or the org maybe leaking something. And then Then they show up to Boston and he just doesn't show up to the ballpark. And now it seems like they're trying to hide it with what I think is like a fake knee MRI. I don't buy that story at all. They would have just said that yesterday. That doesn't come out 12 hours later. That's not how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that does seem kind of like horse shit. And yeah, I'm always hesitant to like get into the with the like what sort of guy is this person in the clubhouse, because like I'm not presenting myself in the clubhouse, or I don't really know the answers to those questions. I think it's a pretty natural blind spot unless you really are showing up there on a day-to-day basis or are ingrained in the community of that specific team. And so I've always sided on the or tilted toward the side of like, I don't really give a shit about this Ketel Marte smoke stuff that you were referencing. This does feel extremely fishy. It feels like it has been like, even if like all of the facts of the Bob Nightingale tweet were inaccurate, it does feel like the result of having had a conversation with somebody about Ketel Marte that was not complimentary, right? Or like on background or something like that. It just feels like there's enough going on here where maybe like the clubhouse stuff is not a huge positive for him. I will say that I'm still very much way more concerned about the sort of player that he is. And I think that's where like I'm now much more focused on, is he good enough to even bother with if he might be something of a problem? So I don't know what percentage or probability you'd slap on the likelihood of him being a clubhouse problem, but like when he was one of the very best players in the National League from 23 to 25, the answer unequivocally or over the broader stretch where there was some inconsistent playing time, that stretches over a half decade going back to 2018. The answer has largely been yes. And in the last 3 years, it was unequivocally yes, because he was, again, one of the best players in baseball. But now, like, he's at a 760 OPS. That's 133 points lower than it was last year, which was already about 40 points lower than it was from his peak season in 2024, at least peak in terms of adjusted OPS. But at 760 or a slightly above league average bat, I'm not sure that what his trade value is and what I'd be willing to do to make that work is much different than it used to be, I think. Because I'm not expecting necessarily a bounce back to a 900 OPS or a 150 OPS plus. I think at 32 going on 33 next year, when you would also be presumably interested, I just think that's a tough thing to ask of a player at that age.
And now he has no trade clause, which is why I found it. The reason I cast aside all the smoke from last year and everything that happened last year was the Diamondbacks like held so firm at a price for not dealing him. They knew like he was about to be 10-5 and get a no trade clause the second the season started. The fact that there were teams interested and they seemingly very much had him on the table and then took him off of the table signaled to me like, oh, it must not have been nearly as bad as it was reported. And then this happened. So I don't know. It, like you said, I do think, I was thinking about the other day walking the dogs, like I can't remember what triggered me to have this line of thinking, but it was something I knew that it was privileged information, and it was like, man, if people knew that about that player, they would have a slightly different opinion. And it is one of those things where, like, as a fan, you do have limited, not like you can know as much of the game as you can, but there are just certain things about the people that you just never will know unless you have that access.
For sure. Yo, you know what we should do? We should tweet out the link.
Oh, I did. I should have tagged you in it. That was my mistake, but I did in fact.
I didn't though. I did not do that. Let's go ahead and do that.
Oh, that baseball is such a cruel sport, Jay, as I know you know. Jaron Duran, I think the professional term has been going through it for some months now. He just had like the clearest single that he's ever stroked to left field. And was it Ryan Walderschmidt, the left fielder? First name's Ryan, right?
Yeah.
He just a full extension diving catch, barely got a glove on it, and it was one of those ones that I was thinking so fast. It's like how this could only happen to a snake bitten player. 950
Dude, I think
expected batting average on that. Oh man. What a cruel
dude,
sport.
Joey Votto quote tweeting the video of Ted Williams talking, and like it's like, man, it's about as good as it gets, really.
Yeah, shout out Passon for I haven't watched the whole thing. I saw the preview you put out, but unearthing Teddy ball game mid fishing trip, being like, that's how you hit a fucking baseball, son. War Games, Tatis Jr. and Dad versus Witt Jr. and Dad. I have to assume it's Witt Jr. and Dad, but I don't know. Man. What's Witt up to already? Is Witt in the Witt's got to be in the 20s career by now.
I'm going Tatis's.
Interesting. Yeah,
I'm feeling good about it.
Junior. I'm thinking of like how good Witt is all around at shortstop, and Tatis Jr. started at shortstop where he admittedly was not as good defensively and then became a platinum glove defender in right. So I'm trying to balance out the defensive war in this equation, which is probably an entirely fruitless endeavor. But I'm going to go the Witt's like, I don't know, like 32 to 27. I don't feel good about either estimation here.
Yeah, it's the Wits. Bobby Witt
Wow.
Sr. is the difference maker here. He got 14 wins above replacement. Fernando Tatis Senior only got 6.
Okay. Wow. So the juniors or the
Tatis is still ahead of Bobby. Yeah, he's still ahead of him by like 2 wins.
MLB family member draft. Interesting. I don't hate that. Do you get both when you select, or is it just like you can only select an individual who had another family member in the league?
That's a good clarification question.
Because like, do I get all the Molinas, or am I taking Jose?
Ooh, the Bonds family.
Yeah.
They all lose. Give me Felipe and Moises.
Pretty good. And are we keeping it strictly father, son, or brothers, or is it like cousins get involved? What do we mean by family here? How much war for 2 grand slams in the same inning? Oh, we were talking about this on Mixtape. You're the perfect person to ask. What's the cross sport comparison for what Joshua Baez did in his debut? Like, is it like Randy Moss's Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys? That obviously wasn't his rookie debut, but like,
yeah,
it's like there's basketball would be like 18 threes. Again, like I really don't know.
Well, so the other thing that makes it tough, right, is like it's not even just finding like a qualitative equivalent to it, which you were throwing out there. It's like he didn't just end the game with 3 homers, although he did.
Right.
But like he hit 3 homers in his first 3 career plate appearances. So it's like I mean, it's just, that's how sports works. There's not maybe a direct comparison, but like maybe I know nothing about I know something. I know basically nothing about hockey
Sure.
significantly.
Yeah.
But like maybe like 3 shots on goal, 3 goals in your debut.
Yeah.
Something, hat trick in your first game with, maybe the hook being your first 3 shots all went in.
Right. Yeah, that
would
we
be
we had the same line of thinking. We settled on like hockey has so many proteges seemingly that could have that happen in their debut. The one we came to for non-hockey, and this also it's not the same because this guy had technically played very sparingly before, but it was the Jonas Gray game against the Colts where he ran for 4 touchdowns and 200 yards and really did nothing else in the rest of his career.
That's a good one. Yeah, just like bust out for the end zone pretty much every time.
Yeah,
I would. You see what Baez has done since, right?
I have not. No.
It's for the world, I believe.
Well, that was why, because Withers is the one who brought it up, and he was just like, "What I love about baseball is like he might get demoted in a week and never make it back. Like that, that might be his whole career in those 3 at bats."
That's why I love the tweets. Like, whatever, you're allowed to be excited. I don't give a shit. But like the national, kind of aggregator accounts being like, Jordan Walker and Baez, back to back for the next decade or whatever. And it's like, like, damn, huh? Really? He doesn't have like a fucking hit since the game. And I listen, I'm not, he can be great. I don't care. I hope he is great.
Right.
But I mean, and for that matter, that would be cool if they were able to add like another stud pillar to the Walker Weatherholt thing. But
yeah, I pulled up your tweet about Jordan Walker's first half v second half as we were talking Cardinals baseball. That's what gets the subscriptions pumping these days.
Oh wow.
But Withers was just in disbelief. He was like, the home run derby thing is real, huh? Like that is a thing. And I said, not for everyone, but yeah, it does seem to claim its victims every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, also, and I haven't heard Jordan Walker on record talking about his slump if he's been asked about it, but also a more robust load that he has carried overall at the major league level than in any previous season in every possible way that you could take that comment. And except like any perverted way. I'm not trying to be weird about it. If there's some
that's
weird
not what
way
the nuts is for.
Yeah, no. I just meant baseball wise, but and Weatherholt has had a downturn too, to be fair. Which I also have noted, and people got kind of angry about that one when I noted it a couple weeks ago. It's like, oh, rookies struggle. Like, thanks for your insight, dickhead. And it's like, okay, well, okay, that's not really what we're doing here. We're just having mostly it's that I'm already researching stuff for Cubs opponents, and like I'm just sending some of it out when I find it mildly interesting. But but yeah, I mean, I've had a hard time shaking. This doesn't really matter. I'm sure the Cardinals brass is not factoring into their team building. I've had a really hard time shaking our experience on the ground in St. Louis a couple of years ago when we went for opening day, because that was like a hollowed out city as best that I could tell, at least around, I'm not saying I explored the whole city, but around the ballpark, at least, and I was there in 2011. I was there like almost like yearly is an understatement, like multiple times every year, for like a half decade period of time when seemingly every week a Monday, Wednesday, or Sunday night baseball was in St. Louis.
Right.
And, you just couldn't escape a national broadcast with the Cardinals. and also one of the most difficult cities to fly into from Hartford, which is another thing. But yeah, it's like, oh fuck, the Cardinals are in the postseason again. God damn it! It's like, anyway,
yeah,
it's a good brand. Like I don't like the best. I like the best fans in baseball stuff because it is now like a mockery of it. But like, I do think baseball is better when the Cardinals are a good team. And so like this season, I think has been, hugely encouraging if that's what people want, because I thought it was much bleaker than what it has shown so far. And obviously Walker had not shown anything really entering this season, and Weatherholt hadn't played. So some of that's to be forgiven, but like their pitching staff has been so much more productive than I would have thought. I thought that was just kind of going to be garbage. And it's been far from that, even if it's not sexy, strikeout rate's still low and stuff like that. Yeah. I just don't remember it being exactly that way when I was there, a decade ago, almost 15 years ago. I just remember it being more robust. I'm talking about Tim Stobo's comment here. Maybe it was just because I was there for the World Series, and that's how I'm kind of remembering that snapshot. And that's not a fair comparison to even opening day, but feels like kind of a fair comparison a little bit.
Well, because it was like we had gone to, or had you gone to Kansas City with us any of the times we were there?
I don't think I've been to Kansas City with you. I have been.
Okay.
I have been there for baseball though, a bunch of times.
Kansas City felt it feels like a stark difference between how St. Louis is
way
right
better,
now.
right?
Way better.
Way better.
Way better.
Yes.
I was shocked. Like St. Louis, did you come to the Blues game with us too?
No, what no.
Okay.
Something I feel like there was something else that happened
Probably.
in lieu of the Blues game. But anyway, I did not go. No.
Yeah, so like that was like the other, like it's not super far from where the Cardinals play, but it was like you just saw more of the city, and it's not like, oh, you only saw this one part. The other part was booming. It was not. Like there was no area outside of really where the stadiums were. Like you could draw like a 1 block radius around each, and like that was like the only places to really be. Outside of that, yeah, dead. And it was jarring. It was jarring.
Well, that's the load that Joshua Baez now carries. So good luck to him. Let's see what else we got going on around baseball right now. Let's do a little check in here.
I like Kansas City. I like Kansas City way more than I thought I would have.
Yeah, Kansas City solid. We just don't like that the ballpark's just off the highway.
Yeah, that was weird. And now they're moving the football stadium, so it will look even more unto itself. You know what I mean? Like it'll just be more parking lot.
I realize they're not the only place that's like that, but that's not the aesthetic for me. Yeah. Damn, a little bit of a Nick Martinez regression game. Tough start.
Oh, what's that looking like?
6-0 Jays.
That'll do it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. The fight in athletics, the fight in Dallas Bradens. They're off and running. By the way, for anybody who's just tuning in, plan is to stream through the conclusion of the Red Sox game or thereabouts. If that game sucks, then maybe we'll bail out on that and watch something else, or maybe we'll just stop. But not going to be a 1 a.m. marathon. For anybody who's like debating, oh, should I stick around, whatever, stick around with us. Stick around, hang out with me and Coley for the next 2 hours, and then, go do something else with the rest of your night. Who knows?
It was fun. Like you said that And I immediately agreed. And then I actually looked at the slate, and it was like
Yeah.
there are no late games. Like the latest game is like 8:40,
Yeah, that's true.
which feels
It's
weird for a Tuesday.
it's not an eat shit slate, that's for sure.
No.
But even that, it's a fair point. It's a very fair point. I'll just go one step further and say that the games that start in that window are just not games that um I think are worth staying up for.
No. No,
In
there's
in
one
a streaming
solid game
sense.
there.
Yeah,
There's the Chicago game.
correct. Yep.
The rest, I don't know. Fernando Tatis, not only is he homered tonight, Jay, he just robbed a grand slam from
That's what he
Francisco
does.
Lindor. Unbelievably rude.
Yeah, it's tough break for Frankie. People have been slandering his character. They're taking away his grand slams. They're handing his team losses, although fewer of those lately. I'm a Lindor guy, man. It's just like
Same.
it's like Cora, man. Some people have hopped off the wagon. I'm not going to name names, but some people have said I'm no longer a Cora guy. I've made it clear that I'm forever Cora. So Alex, I know you're watching right now. You get that Phillies job. Like, don't forget about me, man. Like, we've been through a lot together. Don't forget about me. Winter team's going to stop running on Fienza's. I am going to. Winter team's going to stop. I mean, that's kind of like a rhetorical question on some level. So just acknowledge that, yeah, they should probably stop doing that. I will say that my hunch on whether he has a chance at the Rookie of the Year, I would say both no, but also a much better chance than I would. Like, I would have laughed at the question, I think, in a probably unnecessarily disrespectful way, like as recently as a week or week and a half ago. And because it just felt like such a foregone conclusion that that Weatherholt was going to walk with this one, and I still think that's going to be the case. I think his lead is going to be difficult for any of the candidates to actually surmount statistically, and rookie narrative, I think, is even less important in a Rookie of the Year race than it is in, nobody's going to spend time crafting that sort of thing like they would for an MVP to try and sway votes or something like that. So I think Weatherholt is still the overwhelming favorite, and the Cardinals are a great success story overall. I think the other thing working against him is that one of the other premier candidates for the award is on his own team. Which I don't know. I'm not sure that that's going to end up being a huge issue, but I'm not sure it's going to help either. I don't know. I think Weatherholt's probably going to do it, and I think Sal Stewart's probably going to get a disproportionate level of support. Like, I think if you ask me, has Sal Stewart definitively been more productive than Benj this season, I would say I'm not at all confident about that. And in fact, I think I would probably lean towards the shape of the contributions delivered by Benj, but I'm not. I think the traditional voter, given the amount of attention that Sal Stewart has garnered, relatively speaking, would probably, and the more traditional profile of his Rookie of the Year candidacy, I think, would probably lean that way. So that's a pretty prolonged, stretched out answer to say that I don't think he's going to win, but I think he's given himself a much better chance than I would have anticipated.
Yeah, I haven't looked into any awards at all right now. Like, I know NL MVP seems to be the only hot debate right now. I guess AL Cy Young. AL Cy Young's pretty hot debate as well. Outside of that, I don't know if anything else is moving the needle for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need like an Ohtani surge here. Not that he's been playing badly. In fact, he's been playing quite well. But like, I do feel like we need kind of like a punchback from Ohtani here in the PCA Ohtani thing, because it does feel like it's tilted pretty heavily, both justifiably so and narrative wise, towards PCA. The NL Cy is not currently. I mean, Christopher Sanchez is a fantastic Cy Young candidate. He's just not going to win right now, barring some injury or significant downturn from Mizorowski. AL MVP, AL Cy. Yeah, I mean, while we're on the topic of the AL MVP, I'm not trying to slander any. I'm not going to even name the person, because I think we'd like him on as a guest in the future. But just like I just don't understand how someone could look at Yordan Alvarez and Junior Caminero and then go on TV and say, I think this is a gap that is going to be not only closed, but surpassed over the remainder of the season. If you'd rather build your team moving forward around Junior Caminero than Yordan Alvarez or whatever, that's a different thing. Like that is like way more inexplicable to me on some level than like a guy voting for Miguel Cabrera over Mike Trout for MVP, like back in the day or whatever. Like that, at least you have a candidate who is putting up a more traditional case, right? Versus a person who's maybe a more advanced case, whatever. But like with Yordan Alvarez and Junior Caminero, it's just, here's what this guy has delivered on offense. Here's what this guy has delivered on offense. It just doesn't matter. Like nothing else matters. They're just offensive players. Like Junior Caminero is a DH who gets to hold a glove at third base. You know what I mean? And and Yordan Alvarez is a DH who isn't required to hold a glove. And so like there's almost no world in which that the offensive gap between, like I looked at it the other day, the gap in OPS plus, or it was OPS plus or weighted runs created plus, doesn't really matter. Same idea. Between Yordan and Junior Caminero was the same as the gap between Junior Caminero and Cole Young. Like they're not on the same planet as far as offensive contributions this season, other than I guess home runs. But
does that one in the last 20 years, does the Trout Cabrera one disgust you the most? How it shook out? Disgust maybe too strong of a word.
I mean, at the time, I think I'm pulling up the list right now to see if there is a recent, trying to jog my memory, see if
Verlander maybe
a recent one that made me more mad or something at the time. Yeah, that is probably looking at this, that's probably like the last MVP award where I was like kind of beside myself about the outcome. Like even I know a lot of people, certainly Dallas, still like to spend a lot of time talking about Judge winning over Ohtani. Like, I don't know, man. I still come down on the idea that is a, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think that is a highway robbery, unjustifiable MVP win for Aaron Judge. I think people sometimes in bad faith, to be funny, and that's fine, frame it as he won the award because he broke Roger Maris's record, which isn't really a record because it's the 7th most homers in Major League Baseball history. And like, I do understand that, like, too much was made of that one thing. And if it wasn't the Yankees and if it wasn't Roger, like, nobody would have cared as much. And that's on some level true. There's still a mystique associated with that number of homers. So that Judge was pursuing that. I mean, I think did hold. If Judge had not hit that number and then Cal Raleigh made his run at 60 homers and ultimately fell just shy, I think Cal Raleigh's run at Roger Maris's record would have been covered in I think closer to the same way than Aaron Judge's was than not. I don't know if Roger Maris himself shows up because it's
That's
not
what I was
a
saying.
Yankee.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think he
fine, but
is.
that's fine. I don't think he shows up because it's not a Yankee making a run at it, and he
Sure.
can't like. It's not practical for him to follow the Mariners. You know what I mean? In the same way that he's following the Yankees. But I think in terms of a media coverage thing, I do think Cal Raleigh. He was adored last season. First of all,
Yeah.
he got a lot of attention, and I think he would have gotten a Judgian amount of attention leading up to Roger Maris breaking the record. That aside, that digression aside, I still think I will stand by. I don't know that I would have voted for Aaron Judge over Ohtani in 22. I still think it's okay. I think that is a legendarily outstanding offensive season, like a 210 OPS plus, and damn near 11 wins above replacement is historically special. And that it all came on offense, to me, is incredibly compelling. And so, yeah, I'm not. To me, Miggy over Trout is more offensive to me, to my senses, than Judge over Ohtani in 22. To compare those two.
Ranger Suarez just gave up a grand slam.
I'm so sorry.
After he had
that's
two
when
outs.
That's when I do some of my best talking, is when the Red Sox are.
Well, he did it as you were finishing that thought, which is even worse. I wish it had happened in the middle. But yeah, he hit Corbin Carroll to load the bases, and then Gabriel Moreno did not much care for that, and he took him very deep. Didn't care for that.
I'm seeing some Mad Bum Hall of Fame stuff. It's just not happening, and I'm not a Madison Bumgarner belongs in the Hall of Fame sort of guy. I think Madison Bumgarner can be honored in the museum. I just don't think that postseason means a lot. It absolutely, it means a ton, honestly. He just falls so far short of the regular season standard for the Hall of Fame pitching that I'm just not willing to overlook that for 100 innings of like some of the best postseason baseball of all time. I can't do it. I can't do it. If he would have given us a better decline phase than he gave us, which was actively harmful, basically. And I'm not even like, fuck the negative wins above replacement stuff at the end. I don't care. You can lop off everything after 30 years old if you want to, because he was more or less costing himself at that point. He was only a pitcher through 29 years old. Like that's basically what the deal is. He was a pitcher through his 20s, and he wasn't Sandy Koufax. So we're not going to do that. And I just, if you want to see me like get mad about the Hall of Fame all over again in a way that I haven't been in a long time, it would be putting Madison Bumgarner in the Hall of Fame. I'm not getting emotional. Like the pistachios. If Madison Bumgarner made it in before Johan Santana, because like I just can't do that. I can't do it. Like we can't be honoring peak in this very selective way. And Madison Bumgarner is a great postseason pitcher. He's not the only great postseason pitcher who is not in the Hall of Fame. So Schilling, whose case is very complicated. And prior to him suggesting that the voting panel should be lynched, I was pretty adamantly behind Curt Schilling's Hall of Fame case. I think when you say that the panel should be lynched or suggest that, I do think that complicates the situation in a way that people can't just wave away and say, well, look at his track record, look at his career. It's like, well, okay, but what about the Nazi stuff?
Right.
So statistically, fucking should have been in a long time ago. I think Mike Mussina is a guy who took a while to get in, and I think that's now correctly viewed as ridiculous that it took Mike Mussina so long to get in. I would absolutely, and I'm sure smart people would disagree with me, but I would absolutely take Curt Schilling at his peak or at his, multi-year run of excellence over Mike Mussina every day. Like, I saw those guys pitch. I know that doesn't count for everything, but I've gone through the stats and the profile and the track records as well. And I just, Schill at his peak, man, was just so fucking nasty. So nasty. Him and RJ in 01, there is a part of me that actually pities people like, I mean, I guess in terms of people we work with, Tyler is the example of this, who were not around to see RJ and Schilling in 2001, because like that, first of all, this in 2001, like it just, you could be a baseball fan and you could be a baseball fan on a national level. And I was, it's not the same as being a fan of baseball nationally now, where we can do what we're doing right now, where it's like, oh, I want to watch this fucking game and I'm just going to turn like, oh, Royals, Angels. Yeah. Okay. Like you just kind of got what you got. And you didn't get upset, and you came into passing contact with these teams over the course of a full season when they were basically on national television, and you were also in the position to watch that. So like that moment in time in 01 where it was basically like two Madison Bumgarners happening and
sure,
with on the same team. And it felt like they were almost single-handedly responsible for carrying this team to the World Series at times, and in the World Series specifically. And I just don't think we're ever going to see anything like that again, because it's very hard to acquire two Hall of Fame caliber pitchers, one of whom is one of the five, in my opinion, one of the five greatest pitchers of all time, and have them both at the peak of their powers,
right?
And feeding off of each other and healthy. That's obviously almost a black swan event in its own right in baseball. But man, there are not many things that I just have genuine pity for. Like, oh, you missed this. Like obviously Bonds would be one of them. Like, oh, you didn't get to see Barry Bonds hit. But it's like, even that, it's like, I feel like that's a little bit easier to replicate via highlight.
Like you go back. That's exactly what I was about to say. Yep.
Yeah. You go back and you watch like the signature ones or just Bonds packages, and you're like, I understand Barry Bonds. I see this record breaking homer, all that stuff. But like to watch two guys do what they did in that moment above and beyond like their actual seasons that they put together in the case of, and like that Randy was like regularly denying his own teammate the Cy Young Award because Randy Johnson himself existed. You know what I mean? Like, you just take Randy out of the picture and like Schill has 2 or 3 Cy Young Awards. And it's like, he's in the Hall of Fame before he goes insane. And so, all of history is different.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can,
I just
don't think,
you're right about Bonds, but it's like the home run chase of 98.
Yes, that's a good example. Yes.
That would be that would be one like you missed out. You could go back and watch the record breakers, but you can't really replicate the week to week feeling of
watching Sports Center in the morning.
Because even now, and that was the other thing I was going to say, like, yeah, you could only watch X amount of games for whatever they handed you nationally, but you did wake up every morning and go to bed every night, either watching Sports Center and then Baseball Tonight or both. So you were, and what were they showing you? They were showing the best of the best. Like, they were only showing you the best players because they were the ones making the highlights or pitching in those games. So like you did have, I don't know. It was, I feel like I had a firmer grasp on everything with that, as like everything's in my hand right now, but I don't know as many relievers, let's say, as I did back then, league wide.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Somebody asked about John Lester's case and Dustin Pedroia, and Lester specific to Madison Bumgarner. I don't think John Lester is going to get in ultimately. If I had to bet on it, I know we just had him on the podcast. He didn't ask me my opinion, so it's not like it's not like I was evasive about it. But in preparation for that interview, I took a fresh look at John Lester, his career and his case, and I do think like he is closer to what I think is going to be like an interesting threshold, where it's like what is our present standard for kind of like modern pitching in the Hall of Fame, and where are we going to draw that line? Because Felix is on the bat.
Adley Rushman's done it. He's homered as a
gosh.
member of the Boston Red Sox to tie this game up at 4.
Finally made contact. That's awesome, dude.
His last 4 at-bats dating back to yesterday, J.A. Big fly that was ruled an error. I thought that was nonsense. Would have been a homer in like 19 ballparks. Then he doubled. Then he singled earlier today to knock in 2. He's got 3 RBI on the night. It's the bottom of the 3rd.
Wow.
Sorry. I couldn't let
No, that's great. I mean, that's why we're here.
Unhorned.
No, we have to have that. That's a big moment. Congratulations, Adley Rushman. Here we go.
I'm happy for him.
Me too.
Happy for him. Happy for me. John Lester.
Yeah.
Wearing Lester's 31, no less.
I just think, Felix is on the ballot currently. What was his percentage? It was 20. He went from 20.6 to 46.1. So that is obviously an incredible jump, and probably indicative of the fact that Felix Hernandez is going to get into the Hall of Fame, I would guess. I don't really understand what the point of that jump would be if it's not trending towards general acceptance of his case. But WAR, imperfect, acknowledging all of that sort of thing. He is 12 wins above replacement ahead of Madison Bumgarner and 6 ahead of Lester. So you have kind of a tiered thing here going on where like you've got Felix's case, you've got Lester's case, and you've got Madison Bumgarner's case. And I just like modern voters they're going to have to draw a line as they always do. And, I think that Renaissance, I think Chris Sale was kind of going to be in jeopardy of floating in this lane, more in the Felix end of things than the Madison Bumgarner end, but kind of in this uncertain zone. And obviously the last 3 years, I've been on the record for, I think, multiple years now as saying that I think this is a shoe-in now. He's not going to, I think it's more likely that Chris Sale is a first ballot Hall of Famer than it is that he fails to make the Hall of Fame. So I think that's more or less a lock, but he's also like, he himself is 12 wins above replacement ahead of Felix now. Like he has basically gone from a dead heat with Felix to a completely different level by doing the Braves thing of late. And again, that's what frustrates me about the Johan thing, is that I wish that he was, and I know I bring up Johan a lot for anybody, like whenever we do the Hall of Fame stuff, it's like now the thing that sticks in my craw, but like he pitched during a very formative period of time for me as a baseball viewer, fan, MVP baseball player, just general consumer of the sport. And aesthetically, I loved watching him pitch. Him throwing his changeup is almost as good as it gets for me in the sport. And he was at 51 wins above replacement. So he's better than every pitcher that we have discussed here, except for Chris Sale. And he was summarily disrespected by the voters and these other guys who are demonstrably inferior pitchers. Like that's just fucking what it is. Are going to get a better look. And in some ways, I'm very happy about that, because I think Felix deserves a very long look at the Hall of Fame and would ultimately probably get my vote, And I think Lester is going to get a real look. And I think that he was such a seminal person for very, very important World Series winning teams matters. And that Cubs topper is an incredible kind of final argument for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that I was just looking at his postseason numbers, and
which are
now I'm
great.
on. I was bouncing around every time you named a new person. Earlier you said like it's not about peak, which obviously I care a lot about all of the Hall of Fames. Probably football the least of the three, just because I both love and despise their voting process. I love that it's just like 20 people in a room stating their case for individual guys. But I hate the cap that they put on, which has caused like every great, obvious Hall of Fame receiver, including like Terrell Owens, to not get in on the first ballot. Just really, really dumb and unnecessary. Um, Baseball's like basketball, everyone you've named would have been a Hall of Famer so far, all of them. Madison
What'd you think of the
Bumgarner.
Amari thing? I didn't catch your take on the Amari induction.
I didn't see his induction. I thought him shaved, clean shaven. He looked a lot
Oh,
like
no, not the ceremony. Like just that
tall
he's in the
JB Smoove. Yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
yes, that's what it was. Yes, that's what he
yeah.
looked like. Yeah, that's a good
It's,
call. But him being in the Hall of Fame, like, did you have a take on that?
Yeah, you talk about going back to the early 2000s and watching people nationally, like Amari Stoudemire, I don't think gets as much credit as he probably deserves for being, well, obviously he just got into the Hall of Fame, so clearly he's getting some credit there. But from the general fan, to be one of the out of high school to the NBA success stories, largely because he was drafted and then immediately after LeBron James was drafted, kind of casting a massive shadow on everyone else who came out of high school. But this is a guy who came back from micro fracture, not micro fracture, a surgery.
Yeah.
It was a microfracture surgery. I
Yep.
couldn't remember if that was the exact verbiage there, but microfracture surgery twice. Once right before he hit free agency, which really could have cost him, but he was every bit as good as anyone else who played in his era. And that's where I do appreciate that they take into account peak, because those Suns teams, as much as Nash got the credit in real time, and one of those years Amari was hurt, and they still ended up winning 66 games or whatever it was and being one of the top seeds in the West. Amari, he could shoot out to distance for the time. Obviously, he wasn't shooting threes, but he could shoot free throw line extended and a few steps back like KG. He could defend the rim in a way that I don't think he ever got credit for, because those Suns teams were so bad defensively with the other four. And even Marion was good, but as a team, they just didn't play deep. It wasn't their jam. And it's ultimately why they fizzled out every May come playoff time. But even Steve Nash played with a lot of great fours throughout his career, including Dirk at the beginning, and Amari was the one who got him to that MVP level. I think that matters. I think that matters when you're so good, you're able to elevate your teammate with so many free assists via lobs and pick and rolls and whatnot. And obviously Nash was great in his own right, even if I think he's a smidge overrated. I have no qualms at all about Amari Stoudemire being in the Hall of Fame. I appreciate that basketball will celebrate more players, even if they have borderline cases. Build the hall. Like there really is no restrictions on these things. You know what I mean? I'm way more lenient than a lot of people. When Paul Pierce got in, I remember there were people like he shouldn't be in. Carmelo Anthony, there were people saying he shouldn't be in. I feel like these people are really stupid and shouldn't be allowed to speak out loud. Like these to me, and then you factor in the Olympic stuff. I believe Amari has a gold there. Like all of that matters.
Well, I think some of the dumbest basketball Hall of Fame takes are from people who are willfully ignorant on the idea that it includes things other than what they did in the NBA. Like I just think, they're like, oh, Carmelo never won anything in the NBA. It's like, okay, well, was he not a winner, or did he not just win in that context? Because he won in all the other contexts. So like, but yeah, we can hop back over to baseball. Like, I personally think the peak matters. I think that is maybe the most important thing. I just don't think that it can be like the sole driver of your case. And I would argue that the original impetus for this conversation was Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah.
And I would say that his peak is just not sufficient to warrant, like, to me, Madison Bumgarner was never, like Amari Stoudemire at his peak was I don't remember when his MVP finishes were, but I recall him as, wow, PCA did it, huh?
He keeps doing it. It's harder and harder for Shohei Ohtani to swing back if PCA doesn't stop swinging.
Crazy.
So Amari had 4 top 10 finishes and a 14. He was first team All-NBA once, which unto itself is unbelievably impressive given the era, and you did have to only vote for those positions. It's not like now where you could just vote for 5 guys.
Right.
The era of 4 or 5s he did that in, and to get that first team it's not like as impressive as an MVP, obviously, but that's really impressive.
Yeah. Huh.
But like how extended, because I'm looking at Johan as well. And it's like 5 years in a row. He was Cy Young, 3rd in Cy Young, Cy Young, 5th in Cy Young, 3rd in Cy Young. Like that's a 5-year peak where like the 5th in Cy Young is the arbitrary, not the aberration. That's what I'm looking for. The aberration, as opposed to the top 3s and 2 number 1s and that. Like, is that, if he had that surrounded by, and he obviously had good years outside of that, but never above 4.1 wins in Minnesota, and 1 year 4.7 wins. I think that's a no-hitter year in the Mets. Is 5 years for you enough of a peak?
So part of where I struggle with this is that, like, you're asking me, is a 5-year peak of Johan Santana enough to put him in the Hall of Fame? You know,
I guess that level of peak, like his level
for
of
sure.
peak.
And I'll just for the sake of argument, I'll extend his peak to, you know, like, I think you can make a pretty compelling case that his peak is actually 8 seasons long,
sure.
And goes from 03 to 10. And I know that's not the type of peak you're talking about, so just bear with me for a second. But like he over an 8-year period, he put up 1,600, almost 1,700 innings pitched, and had damn near 50 wins above replacement over an 8-year period. So like that's again the entirety of his contributions. But like, we sit there and say, is that enough? Is a peak of 1,600 innings enough to put Johan Santana on the Hall of Fame? And then, you know, somebody like Trevor Hoffman's case comes up and he threw 1,000 innings, 1,089 and a third innings in his entire career.
Right.
And it's like, yes, please, sir, get into the Hall of Fame. And I understand the concept. I understand the concept of leverage, and that some of the innings that Trevor Hoffman were throwing were more directly related to whether the game was going to be won or lost than every single bulk inning that Johan Santana provided. But we are talking about a difference of basically 2x. Like Johan threw twice as many innings in his career, basically. Was basically twice as productive by wins above replacement. He had essentially the same ERA and adjusted ERA for his career as Trevor Hoffman did, while Trevor Hoffman was, being used in the manner that traditional closers were used in, which is, I'll say, usually gingerly, and in ways that were like, we're not that far removed from the closer essentially being treated as like this delicate flower that can only, you can only open the door to sniff the flower, during from 7:45 p.m. to 7:51 p.m., on Thursday, because otherwise their artistic sensibilities will be thrown off. That's kind of how closer usage was for a decent chunk of Trevor Hoffman's career. And I don't know what the threshold is, but a 5-year peak, where the peak that you're talking about is you are the best pitcher in baseball,
Sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
And you are one of the very best players impact wise in all of baseball, regardless of position. That to me is like, yeah, unless there is nothing else supporting your case, then yeah, that's good enough for the Hall of Fame for me. But it really does have to be at that level. Like Grady Sizemore was a great player. That's not what I'm talking about here.
Not everyone's peak is the same peak. Absolutely. Yeah.
Correct.
1,000%.
We don't need to make excuses for every player whose quantity was cut below what you would want because of injury or decline in performance or whatever it might be. Chase Utley's candidacy is interesting, kind of for something of the exact opposite reasons that a lot of these guys who are fringy end up being. Not totally dissimilar to Johan, because it really took Johan until his age 25 season to become a full-time starter in the major leagues. And for someone who was as good as he was and ended up being, that's probably too long. And when you look at what he was doing in a partial relief role, this is, I know people are frustrated with the way that baseball is played now in a lot of ways, or managed. And I share a lot of those frustrations, so I'm not diminishing them. But like, you look at some of the just incredible horseshit that was going on, like organizationally 20, 25 years ago, where like, I'm not speaking ill of Tom Kelly, but like, you got to a point where with some of these guys where they were basically so old and had been in their positions for so long that it was more or less organization by inertia. And you had these situations where like, what are we doing keeping Johan Santana in the incubator when across 2002 to 2003, he threw 266 and 2/3 innings pitched with 306 strikeouts and a 3.04 ERA with a FIP that was actually lower than that. And I'll just note that 306 strikeouts and 266 and 2/3 innings might sound like, your pretty standard fare of high-end pitching these days. Johan's strikeout numbers were all best in class for his era. So, a guy striking out 9 or 10 batters per inning was a big fucking deal 20 years ago. And so that's the other thing that, like, it's a nostalgic era of pitching for me. I also feel like it's an era of pitching that's already been is already threatening to be overlooked somewhat, because the strikeout, like the era that precedes it, is basically the era of, in my opinion, the greatest pitching in baseball history. So like the Randy and Pedro and Maddox and Clemens, and the list goes further than Musina, Schilling, Glavine, all those Smoltz, all those guys. The greatest era of pitching in baseball history is what starts it. Then you have the like the Johan Holiday type of era, and then you have the modern era of pitching, where all the strikeouts exploded, and you have just this incredible swing and miss that enters into the game. And then now you look back at kind of like the peaks of Johan, and you can see that he's leading the league in strikeouts and strikeout rate and stuff like that, kind of year in, year out. But you look at the actual numbers and you're like, well, Garrett Cole struck out 300 something batters in 2019 or whatever it was. Like, why should I be impressed at 245 or 265 for Johan? Or like, rest in peace, pulling up Roy Halladay's run, which is pretty much concurrent with With Johan's run, it obviously lasted longer. But like, he's even more of like a, you sort of had to be there to appreciate him sort of thing, because the strikeout numbers aren't there. And there's almost not going to say there's nobody like Roy Halladay in the game. And obviously there really isn't, because that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. But like, there's not really anybody pitching at the level that Roy Halladay was pitching at relative to his peers, who's in the game right now, whose strikeout rate is like, at least I'm trying to think, whose strikeout rate is like so pedestrian relative to everybody else. Like I guess maybe Yamamoto would be the guy that first comes to mind, in the sense that like, he's unequivocally one of the best pitchers in the game, but he's clearly not really focusing on the strikeouts. And particularly this year, he's taken a huge, so he's 23rd. I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but I think that era of pitching, because of the explosion of strikeout rate, has been overlooked somewhat statistically, and kind of in appreciation of it.
Yeah. If you had asked me like, what was Halladay's K per nine, I wouldn't have said 6.9. Nice.
Right.
I would not have. I mean, just especially in division, I say it all the time in regards to him. If the Blue Jays are coming up on the schedule, you would go, is Halladay pitching? If he's not, I got to sweep. If he is, it's 2 out of 3. Like, he will single-handedly beat us. That is how I will always remember him. That level of dominant. So it's shocking to see, but you're right. Like, the strategy of hitting has changed. The data available to pitchers and coaches alike is different than it was then. So yeah, the strikeout numbers are going to jump, but that doesn't make me more impressed by Jesus Luzardo. No offense to him.
No, I mean, it certainly did there for a bit. Like, when it was first happening, you're like, oh my God, like, these guys are just so nasty. And obviously, on some level, with people like Mizorowski and stuff, it's
sure.
undeniable. But you do become somewhat numb to it at a point where it's like, I love Dylan Cease. I think he's an interesting person. He was my pick for the Cy Young. I'm rooting for him to pull it out, all that sort of stuff. But like, him, like, he has his sixth consecutive 200 strikeout season. And like the other names that have done that among players to debut in the last 2 decades are, like, I think Felix is, I think without a doubt, the worst pitcher on the list to do it, other than Dylan Cease. And so it's just like, wow, man, it's like, that's very impressive what he does. It doesn't quite mean the same. You know what I mean? And I know everybody knows that, but, and shit, Dylan Cease is hardly done. There is this fucking fly flying around here that it's like taunting me. It's like, oh, you're.
They always are.
Yeah.
They always are.
Oh man.
Someone RP 4388. I'm not up on baseball history. Is Juan Soto the best player to never win an MVP if he continues on and does not win an MVP?
It's a good question. It's exactly the sort of question that we're looking to get here.
Dude, first name, I don't know if this is even a good name, but first name that came to mind for me was Larry Walker. No, he won MVP, so it's a bad name.
He did.
It's
a bad name.
Yeah.
Your instincts were off there. I mean, he is not the answer. I do think that, given the audience, Manny Ramirez deserves a shout.
Sure.
Derek Jeter never won an MVP, so
that's a bad name too.
Yeah. I think in terms of like the actual best players statistically that did not win the MVP, it's probably something like Eddie Matthews or Mel Ott.
Okay.
I think that's a bit of an asterisk because I think people are looking for a little bit more of a modern answer.
Plank.
Eddie Plank, yeah. Eddie Plank never won. Tony Gwynn.
Helton never won.
Helton, Tony Gwynn, Eddie Murray, Wade Boggs.
Yeah.
I mean, Piazza's in the Hall of Fame, never won the MVP.
Okay. Pedro.
Sure, if we're going to incorporate pitchers.
He's the only one who came to mind who could have and arguably should have won one that didn't.
Okay, so that's a good like kind of follow up here, right? Is like I don't think Manny has a case for an MVP in a given season, right? Even if the bulk of his or the entirety of his career is like he's one of the best to ever win. Jeter, I think would be. I know you don't want to acknowledge it, but he's a guy who's like the year Morneau won very easily and maybe should have gone to Derek Jeter. So no, not on Andrew Jones. I can't do that. I think we've named several people. Just me rambling. Basically, everybody I've named is better than Andrew Jones, in my opinion.
Wow. For a single season or career?
Like literally Andrew Jones's best season against the guys' best seasons that I named.
Yeah.
You know what? I would probably come closer to sticking with what I just said because I don't think like Wade Boggs's best season is fucking crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like I guess maybe he wasn't. Yeah, like Wade Boggs was reeling off 8 and 9 win seasons for like half a decade or longer. And so much of that was offensive driven that I feel pretty good about that. I mean, I would say Andrew Jones's peak season is probably better than Eddie Murray's peak season, since I did actually say the name Eddie Murray.
Sure. I was only thinking of the modern guys.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't think that I would. Okay. Here's an interesting question for you: Mike Piazza's peak or Andrew Jones's peak? Because you're getting the power, right? Regardless, it's whether you want that person to sit behind the plate or do you want that person to be the best defensive center fielder in the game?
Like maybe ever. Like if he's in a conversation with one other guy in that regard, that to me would be the separator.
PCA?
Yeah. It's Cedar Rafaela and PCA. No, Andrew Jones. I don't know. I do love Andrew Jones, and it's probably because I spent nearly a decade arguing he should be in the Hall of Fame. Now that he's in, I probably need to recalibrate to like what he actually is, as opposed to like he's being disrespected. But yeah, Piazza's interesting for that because he was obviously like one of the best catchers, not just a catcher. So I probably would go elite center fielder who, like, if Andrew Jones hit 50 one year, right?
Yes. Now, I don't have the defensive metrics up in front of me. That was late peak for him. So, like, I'm not sure that you're getting the best version of Andrew Jones in center field at 28 years old, like you were in maybe 2000, when you're sacrificing 15 homers and 15 points of OPS, but you're getting, the more languid version of Andrew Jones instead of, but I just want to throw. I'm not saying which side of this I'm coming down on yet, but I do want to note that while I said that you're getting the home runs from both guys, that is entirely too flippant for the gap in offensive production that existed between these two guys at their peaks, because Mike Piazza's peak offensive season was, by all accounts, 1997 with the Dodgers, where he posted 40 homers, so less than Andrew Jones at his peak by 11 actually.
Mhm.
But he hit 362, 431, 638, which is a 1.070 OPS. Andrew Jones never had an OPS higher than 922. That was
No.
the 51 homer season, and in fact, only had 2 seasons in his career where he posted a 900 OPS or higher. Mike Piazza had almost too many to count here. He had 8 or 9 seasons ballparking it here by my eyes of 900 or better, and by OPS plus between Andrew Jones and Mike Piazza, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the 9 best seasons between Mike Piazza and Andrew Jones offensively belong to Mike Piazza. So I'm not dismissing the center field thing. I still don't know what my answer would be here, but to say that these guys were both offensive forces is extremely disrespectful to the level of offensive force that Mike Piazza was.
Sure. I think it's, well, what did Piazza finish with home run wise? I genuinely have no idea.
427.
Okay. So they're actually right in the same 434 to 427. Okay. So that's where it's like Andrew Jones, same power as Mike Piazza. Overall hit tool, Piazza by a lot.
Yeah, they ended their careers with a 40-point gap in on-base percentage. And again, like, yes, the same amount of power. Mike Piazza finished with 60 points more in slugging percentage for his career. So, like,
Sure. Yeah.
it's he's getting there primarily with the walks, but not exclusively with them. And I don't know. We're like way off track now, I guess, because somebody just asked whether we would take Andrew Jones off over any of the guys we named. But I do think that's kind of an interesting comparison that I hadn't thought of before. Because I guess why would you? But
no.
Let's see.
Yeah, Manny has more career WAR. I wouldn't have guessed that because of the defensive gap. While noting the offense obviously was Manny.
Manny versus Andrew Jones.
Yeah,
I am taking Manny Ramirez 100% of the time.
Oh, no, I was just saying I was shocked to see that Manny had more career WAR due to how bad the defense was.
For sure.
Or at least Fenway helped him a lot because he would lead the league in putouts like every year.
That is just such an undeniable level of offense to me that I just
Correct.
can't. I don't care. Like, I do care about the center field defense. The gap in offense to me is just, and Manny was just like, it was just a metronome every single year. It was the same fucking thing. Love Manny.
996 career OPS is preposterous.
I'm looking up something really fast that somebody said because I want to have a basis for my opinion that's more than off the cuff.
No, that's not what the show's about.
So somebody asked whether, well, I'll just say who asked. Eric Z asked, would Salvador Perez make the top 10 all-time modern catchers post 1950s? I mean, modern generally refers to, I mean, in the baseball sense, modern era since 1900, but let's use integration as the cutoff here instead of 1950, just for ease of searching, I guess. That's 1947. In terms of wins above replacement, I'll look up any stat. I'll use any stat you want. If you don't want me to use WAR, I don't really give a shit. But the Salvador Perez ranks 22nd among catchers since that time. He is 1 spot ahead of Wilson Contreras and 1 spot behind Roy Campanella. Obviously, somebody's going to say Roy Campanella is in the Hall of Fame. I understand that. Great example of what Coley's talking about earlier with peak trumping everything else, and the fact that he was like basically paralyzed, and was also prevented from joining the major leagues prior to joining the Brooklyn Dodgers because he was black. So Not really a relevant comparison there, but I think the other names around Salvador Perez are extremely relevant to kind of shed light on why I just don't think Salvador Perez has any business being in the Hall of Fame. Wilson Contreras, one spot behind him. Then you get to Campanella ahead of him. The guy ahead of Campanella is Russell Martin. The guy ahead of Russell Martin is JT Realmuto. The guy ahead of JT Realmuto is Lance Parrish, then Jim Sundberg, Darrell Porter, Jason Kendall. Okay. Have you ever heard anybody make a Hall of Fame case for like any of those fucking people? I mean, I've sort of like started to glance at JT Realmuto to see what I can maybe do there, just because I think it is interesting that Salvador Perez has this drumbeat behind his Hall of Fame case. And meanwhile, a definitively better catcher has been playing right next to him the whole time. And nobody gives a fuck about JT Realmuto's Hall of Fame case. And in fact, I bet he just goes one and done on the ballot, which will be incredibly disrespectful, because JT Realmuto he is not anymore, but he had a very good statistical case as being the best catcher in baseball over a half-decade period. Like, that's not nothing in a Hall of Fame conversation. The best at your position over a half-decade period. JT Realmuto was that. It was not the spectacular version of Mike Piazza or Pudge Rodriguez or whatever, but he owned that position over a period of time. And I think I would not put either JT Realmuto or Salvador Perez or Russell Martin. Somebody tried to do a Russell Martin thing a couple of years ago. I'm not even calling out anybody because I don't remember who it was, but it was some like stats person. And I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like
good player.
Say it out loud, right? Like I'm making a case for Russell Martin in the
Was
Hall
it
of
Russell
Fame.
Martin?
Yeah, it's like I was like, does that intuitively feel correct to you? And that doesn't mean you have to stop the pursuit of an answer. Like, sometimes counterintuitive is good, but I don't think that's an example of that. I think Russell Martin was just a very good player who is maybe a little bit underrated. Jason Kendall, another guy. Like, I think Jason Kendall is a equally compelling Hall of Fame candidate to Salvador Perez, and just nobody ever gave a fuck about Jason Kendall.
No. Well, going back to that early 2000s talk we were having, Jason Kendall, I think if you bought any pack of baseball cards between like 98 and 04, you were going to get a Jason Kendall in there for Topps, Upper Deck, whoever the fuck, Don Russ. You were going to get a Kendall every time. So I think everyone just knew who he was because of that. Does that make you a Hall of Famer? Yes. I think definitively yes.
Dude, Jason Kendall was putting up 400 on base percentages in his peak in his early 20s.
But 400. No one cared then. No one cared about on base then. They thought he stunk because he wasn't socking enough dingers.
He was also on the fucking Pirates.
Yeah, it didn't help.
God, those Pirates teams were bad. Oh my God, dude.
So like, that's the salvi. Like, if one of those Pirates teams had won the World Series with him being their best offensive player, he would probably be in. And if he only played for them, because he went on to play for what, 2 other teams, Kendall?
It is funny about that Royals team where it's like, depending on like what day of the week it is or whose case you want to like unnecessarily blow up. It's like, you can be, well, he was the best hitter on this team. And it's like, how many people can that possibly apply? It's like I get it. They were a dumpy ass offensive team. Like, I get it. Yeah, Eric Hosmer, best player. Yep. Alex Gordon, yep. Mike Moustakas. I get it. There are people in the media who are just clearly, they have drunk the Kool-Aid on Sal Perez in the Hall of Fame, and it's going to make it weird for me because I just can't stand for it. And I think I just can't. I'm going to have to go toe to toe with some of these people on Salvador Perez, because if I have to stand in front of the Hall of Fame and prevent him from getting in, I might have to do it. Yeah, Salvador Perez before Jorge Posada. There's one for you. Why is that happening? Oh, because Salvador Perez is a winner. Okay.
Yeah. Posada's never won anything.
Right. Yeah, no, Posada didn't win shit.
Veritek's getting no
No.
case. That's tough. That's tough.
No, Tech has, you know, whatever, no case, however we want to describe it. But like, you know, it's a lot closer to Salvador Perez's case than people would be comfortable admitting, I think.
Sure.
It's the difference is bulk, and that is not nothing. But like, you know, Salvador Perez is, if he wasn't the World Series winner with the Royals, he's not getting Hall of Fame consideration. And those things are important, particularly those one-off titles for teams and franchises that, like, I remember the Royals celebration when they won. That was different. Actually, it was different than some other World Series celebrations that we've had since. Like the turnout there was absolutely incredible from what I remember in the photos and just the kind of general energy with that team. But I think to be less combative about it and more kind of real about the Salvador Perez thing, if you think Salvador Perez is a Hall of Famer, I think it is incumbent upon that person to explain away why they are not also supporting the candidacies of contemporary catchers who are just as good or better. Like, why are you not telling me that JT Realmuto is a Hall of Fame catcher that we should be appreciating in his twilight here? Like, why is that not happening? And it can't just be Salvador Perez played his entire career for the Kansas City Royals. That's just not good. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. And, you know, in terms of number of relevant teams, I would say that JT Realmuto has probably been on the same number of relevant teams, postseason wise, aspiration wise, as Salvador Perez has been. It counts. It matters that Salvador Perez is, they crystallized that with an actual win. But, you know, Realmuto has been in the zeitgeist. He has not been in with the Marlins for his entire career. He spent his most important seasons with the Phillies.
I do think when you brought him up, I did immediately think if he just played for the Phillies the whole time, I do think more people would be making that case.
Do you? More.
People wouldn't be like, dear God, get him in there. But more people than the zero currently would be making that case. Yes.
Like, tell me why you're not doing that. So,
right.
And if you can explain that, then let's have the Salvador Perez conversation after that. But like, I just don't think we can be skipping over, you know, like a half dozen catchers, or like to the point of the commenter in the chat, like why, where were you on the Jorge Posada vote? Because a lot of these people were voters. So we're gonna know,
right.
or they could show us, if they were so inclined, what their vote on Jorge Posada was. You didn't vote for Jorge Posada. Okay. Why are you getting behind Salvador Perez? If the answer is, I have regrets about how I viewed Jorge Posada's candidacy, this is an attempt to take what I think is a similar candidate, not me personally, the hypothetical person that I think is a similar candidacy, and do it right this time. Okay, I'm willing to hear that out. That sounds compelling. You have reflected and changed your opinion on this. And if the follow-up to that is, if I had another chance at Posada, I would vote for him in, then okay, then I guess we're moving forward with Salvador Perez then, in that scenario. But like, why did you not vote for Posada? Why? What sort of case do you think Jason Kendall has? If you have a lot of that person's time, you know, like, like what sort of case do you think Wilson Contreras has? Like, let's have that conversation. Like, the season that Wilson Contreras is having right now offensively, which I understand is not as a catcher,
right,
which matters, but like Salvador Perez, like, I mean, what's his exact breakdown?
What are you looking for? Because I got him versus Posada pulled up head to
Oh
head.
no,
Like obviously.
no. I was just looking at what Perez's positional breakdown this season was.
Oh
So he's
sure.
played catcher.
Yeah.
He's played catcher more often than I actually thought. 44 games compared to 54 at DH and 18 at first base. But you're still getting the clear cut majority, something like 65% of his games, 62%, 63% are being played not at catcher. So,
Right.
um, it's interesting, but I'm definitively out on Salvador Perez as a Hall of Famer. Victor Martinez, better player. So it's just that he didn't win a World Series. That's just really what it is. That's just not enough for me.
Well, it's weird
Brian
because
McCann, another great name.
he has twice just Posada and Salvi. Posada has like better everything offensively except for the counting ones. But like OPS, slug, on base, all that better. Career OPS plus better. But it's like he has no gold gloves to Salvi's 5. I don't care about gold glove that much, but I imagine some Hall of Fame voters would. And Salvi has double the amount of All-Stars. How many of those All-Stars were he was the lone selection for Kansas City? I'm sure at least 2. Uh but it is interesting. Like he does check those boxes, which they have to account for something in the Hall of Fame debate.
They do. I mean, Salvador Perez's Gold Gloves. I personally put zero stock in those.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
But like, there's another part to this where, like, if the Royals were operating on a more serious level, my words, Salvador Perez doesn't get the chance to leg out some of these counting stats. Like maybe he gets a chance somewhere else, but since the start of last season, 25, we're now at just north of 1,100 plate appearances of a 90 OPS plus 685 OPS. He's added 46 homers and 154 RBI. So without those numbers, he would be at 273 homers, and he would be at 916 RBI. I think people would be, I don't care, but like 300 homers, 1,000 RBI feel like they drew some attention for Salvador Perez.
Sure.
If the Royals are like competing for things and Salvador Perez is winding out his career with his final 1,200 plate appearances in let's call it a Marlins uniform, or the Rays. Angels. Yeah, the Rays are what the fuck do the Rays have to do with Salvador Perez right now?
DH, but like something like that.
Yeah, whatever. You're right. The point is, it doesn't matter what the team is, as long as we're not talking about like him finishing with a flourish with like the Yankees, and sending them to like the World Series title.
Sure.
Then you lose like the one team thing. You lose potentially some of these counting stats things that he's had a kind of an extended run here at accumulating. And then it's like his actual Hall of Fame case is not really any more or less compelling than it is right now, but the aesthetics of it are maybe meaningfully different in the amount of support that he would get. And like, I know I'm like, making up a guy to get mad at sort of thing. Like what doesn't exist, but my kind of rambling point, I think, is that his case, that it feels like the narrative of his case rests on something so stupid like that, which is like him tacking on meaningless horseshit at the end of his career because the Royals aren't any good and don't take winning baseball games seriously, despite having one of the best players in all of baseball and Bobby Witt Jr. on their roster and under contract. Separate conversation. That it rests on that feels to me like that is evidence of its flimsiness. And so, I'm sure there are other questions beyond Salvador Perez that we just spent 20 minutes on, but
it's all people care about. We're getting calls.
will Jose
sending a
Ramirez
call-in
get into the
show.
Hall of Fame? Yes, first ballot.
He's all right, I guess.
The Stanton thing, I feel like we talked about on the last Nuts, actually.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
If Salvador Perez gets to 400 homers, like I don't. How does that even happen? How, like
it would have to be very like Pujols-esque, where it's like really bad for like 5 more years, and then he gets some help, and then has one really good last year, and then he leaves.
He's already the worst qualified hitter in baseball by F4 this year. The worst. He's the worst by by a half a run. He's at I checked yesterday, or when we recorded on yesterday. He's at negative 1.3 wins above replacement. The next closest qualified batter is 0.8, and in fact, there were only 3 qualified batters under replacement level. So like Duran and I think Marcus Semien or Duran and somebody else were exactly replacement level at the time. And it was like Semien and Salvador Perez and one other guy were the below replacement guys. And Salvi's on his own tier. It's just unbelievable. Matt Olson's Hall of Fame case. There is somebody lurking out there on Twitter who is going to they're going to get me on this one, I think, because I have a tweet that was like pretty dismissive of Matt Olson's Hall of Fame case, like I want to say 3 years ago. And
he said 150 home runs since.
I don't think it was like he has no chance, but it was pretty clear where I came down on it. And it was like, I don't think this is a thing. It's going to be a thing, whether like he may get in, he may not. It will be a thing that is going to be debated. And I think it is personally surprising to me that it's a conversation that we may end up having. I'm also still not sure where I fall on it. Like the only thing that I'm confident in is that he still has work to do. So,
yeah, agreed.
He can't get in if this is the end of the road, and there's no evidence that it is. Obviously, he's having a better year than he did last year, which was a better year than he had the year before. So, maybe there's a poetry about to happen here where Matt Olson's early to mid 30s mirror the early to mid 30s of the guy who he replaced in Freddie Freeman, whose peak has been far longer than and deeper and higher than I ever anticipated into his career. Like I just thought that's another guy that I don't think I was out there really giving takes at the time, but if my takes had been recorded in the ESPN green room watching the games, like I was pretty clearly in the camp that Freddie Freeman was like a good player, like a very good player, but a good player, and not somebody that was going to be like a first ballot. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Of course, Freddie Freeman's going to the Hall of Fame sort of guy. And so maybe that's where Olson ends up as well. But a 135 OPS plus with 324 homers, if you like counting stats, and 44 wins above replacement. You know, if we're drawing comparisons to recent first basemen that were inducted into the Hall of Fame and whose profile I think Olson is somewhat similar to, it would be Todd Helton. You don't have to go back very far for his candidacy. Almost a dead ringer in terms of OPS plus at 133, which I think is helpful because there's like a 90 point gap in raw OPS. But I think Matt Olson and Todd Helton being similarly talented and productive offensive players, I think is true. I don't think there's a lot of question that that Matt Olson has reached Todd Helton's peak only once, really, with the 2023 season. But Todd Helton wasn't reaching Todd Helton's peak that often either. You know what I mean? He had 4 years where he hit a 160 OPS plus or higher, but Matt Olson is going to have better middle years, like those filler years that help with a Hall of Fame case. But he's still got 17 wins above replacement to catch Todd Helton. And they're basically dead even in homers. So I think Olson's got a pretty decent shot here if he can claw out, another 15 wins above replacement over the next, I don't know how many years do we think he plays? 5 or 6 more years?
What's his
contract at? Obviously he'll have to sign a new contract at some point, but let's see. He's on an 8-year, runs through 2029 with a club option for 2030 with no buyout. So he's got
the Braves, man, the fucking Braves.
Yeah. So he's got 3 more years with the potential for a 4th year. Feels like that's a $20 million club option that's probably going to happen.
I'd pick it up today.
Yeah. Much more compelling case than I gave him credit for a couple of years ago. But, maybe there's a lesson learned for me in there about stuff, but I would also say that he, that he has subsequently put up like 2 of his 4 or 5 best seasons in his career is somewhat surprising, but a testament to him as a player. We'll see where it goes.
Arenado's going to walk in.
Does feel like Arenado's going to walk in. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I am very compelled by it's not really one generation of third baseman, but like this broader kind of era of third baseman that is like, I want to call it like post A-Rod almost. But I'm trying to think of like where the actual,
when it starts.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I can get a cutoff here. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like so like you had the Chipper Roland kind of A-Rod era, but like I'm kind of fascinated with what's gonna
Beltre just retired.
Yeah, Beltre's kind of hovers between the two of them. By the way, Beltre, a good answer for best player to not win the MVP. Also,
yeah,
maybe not the answer, but a pretty good one that should be mentioned.
Yeah,
the
David Wright cutoff.
What's that?
The David Wright cutoff is Eric Z.
Yeah, so David
it.
Wright, like I don't think Evan Longoria is going to really get considerable attention for the Hall of Fame, but like from a statistical perspective, he probably definitely should. Like he's at damn near 60 wins above replacement. Like how does a modern voter kind of square not paying attention to that? Evan Longoria and Nolan Arenado have damn near the exact same number of wins above replacement in a very comparable number of total plate appearances. Longoria has, 250 or so more career total plate appearances, which is nothing in the scheme of their total careers. So like it's in terms of OPS plus, it's 119 for Longoria. It's 118 for Arenado. So like that's one of the, again, that's going to be an interesting thing. Cause I'm not even, this isn't me saying that Nolan Arenado doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. And it's not even really me being comfortable with the idea of saying that Evan Longoria belongs in the Hall of Fame. But I do think you need to square that if you are a voter for the Hall of Fame. Like you need to, nobody does like very few do like public explanations for their votes. But if somebody were so inclined, I would love if they're going to pick one or the other or pick both or pick neither. Like, how are you arriving at that conclusion? Because the statistics will tell you that these were basically the exact same fucking player. Like the 373 homers, 342 homers, 35 stolen bases, 58 stolen bases. Like the numbers that they are similar in, they're almost exactly the same. The only thing that's different is essentially the idea that Nolan Arenado fulfilled his promise and was the player that he was supposed to be, and that Evan Longoria peaked early and faded out too early. Like that's it. It feels narrative driven to me. Am I crazy?
Uh, in
Like,
comparison
would
to
you
who
even take no?
specifically?
Would you?
Arenado?
Would you? Are how confident are you? Let me phrase it a different way. How confident are you that you're taking Nolan Arenado at his peak over Evan Longoria at his peak?
I think decently confident, but like that would be mostly on the defensive side of the ball, where like Longoria wasn't terrible, obviously. Like it, I just view Nolan Arenado as the guy of his generation. And then I feel like I'm probably getting similar offense, like you just said, similar offensive production from the two.
So the by adjusted OPS, the best seasons, and it's a little bit of a nitpicky thing, but like the best season offensively between those two guys is Nolan Arenado's 2022, somewhat surprisingly, perhaps for some listeners, with the Cardinals. So it's not any Rockies season; it's his Cardinals season where he put up a 151 OPS plus and an 891 OPS, which is not anywhere near his career high in OPS. But everybody understands park factors and playing in Coors Field. But then the next three seasons by OPS plus all belong to Evan Longoria, 2012, 2010, 2011, and 2012. So to his credit, three consecutive seasons, one of which was a partial season. But even if you throw that out, Longoria's got two more 133 OPS plus seasons, which ties Longoria's second best. So, or Arenado's second best. So I think like I know the raw offensive stats will point to Longoria, and some people may never be able to get, and maybe that includes me, may never be able to get over like the Coors element where Nolan Arenado, you see the black ink, you see that he led the NL in homers 3 times, you see that he led Major League Baseball in RBI 3 times, you see that he led the league NL or MLB in total bases. You see like kind of the raw OPS numbers that are more impressive than Longoria's. But like, it's not like anybody's denying the Coors Field thing. And it's not like Evan Longoria wasn't viewed as an actual superstar at the time. Like it is rewriting history to say that Evan Longoria in, 2009, 2010, 2011 wasn't considered one of the very brightest stars in Major League Baseball. And
big time.
And statistically, whether you're using wins above replacement or whether you're just like looking at the fact that he had, through his age 30 season, had accumulated 241 homers and had an 128 OPS plus, like he was on his way to becoming a Hall of Fame player. And that was the consensus. That's not some radical hindsight driven take. And, he was not dynamic in his 30s. But it's not really true that he did nothing to advance his case either. Like he added 10 wins above replacement in his 30s to his Hall of Fame case. Is that what you would have anticipated when he delivered damn near 50 through his 20s? No, but it's also not nothing. Like being essentially a league average bat for 2,700 plate appearances over the course of a decade. How much you want that to impact somebody's Hall of Fame case, your mileage on that may vary, but like that has some level of value. And to your point about how the NBA does it, or how the pro basketball, or how the Basketball Hall of Fame does it, and how baseball does it, like I don't know how much a decade of league average performance is helping an NBA player's Hall of Fame case. Like I guess, would Vince have gotten in the Hall of Fame if he didn't have kind of his second and I guess maybe even third acts?
Maybe only because the NBA is just like, man, that guy was sick.
Yeah.
Like that. But to your point, the NBA does have, or at least did have, it's going to get tested real soon. Like 20,000 points was like, you're in.
Yeah.
And Vince passed that I think with like the Grizzlies or some shit. But like that's soon going to be tested by like Andrew Wiggins. And then it's going to be like, all right, is this
Yeah,
really what we're
the
going to?
standard.
Yeah, is that, and we're going to be beholden to this? But yeah, for league average for the NBA, if you're like 32 through 37, obviously it's not a decade, but if you did that averaging like 18 points a game, like yeah, that would be pretty substantial for that guy's case. I'm always of the mind, especially with baseball, and again, it goes back to the Andrew Jones thing. If you played your entire 20s, not you couldn't come up when you're like 25 and become an everyday regular, especially as a hitter. I I think your 30s can only help your case. I tend not to have that hurt your case. You know what I mean? Like
Yes,
I
yes,
understand
yes.
how the human body works, and so like when these guys like a David Ortiz or Barry Bonds obviously had a case before his 30s, but when they are Adrian Beltre, much better example. When he goes crazy nuclear for his entire 30s, like yeah, that helps your case. If you're an
Yeah,
Andrew Jones who did that in your 20s and then had your 30s and that wasn't nearly as impressive, I don't hold that against you.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I just think you have to have delivered on the front end.
Big time,
Um,
1,000%. You can't just be like an everyday regular who just played for a long time. You can't be the Jamie Moyer of position players. I don't
right.
know who that would be off the top of my head, but that's not enough.
I want to catch up on a few comments here because some Owen Swanson 5357 Machado first ballot for me. Yes, Machado is above Arenado for me. I don't know if it's a different tier, but it is. I feel very very good that Machado is a going to the Hall of Fame and b like squarely deserves it. I think the way Scott Rowland I think the way the voters worked through Scott Rowland's candidacy is going to be instructive for how Machado is going to get through, and I think it's just going to be an easier time for him. I know he's got some reputational things that may get brought up at some point. His case, I think, is just going to be it's going to be overwhelming because currently his OPS plus is the exact same as Rowland's. So you have that. Rowland's defensive reputation is obviously sterling. I think we're all on the same page that like Coley said, Arenado's the defensive class of his generation. I'm not going to tell you Coley's wrong. I think
Thank you.
it may be a 1 and 1A sort of conversation because I do think Machado spent time
Yeah,
at that tier as well, and obviously was a shortstop for the first chunk of his career. But he's going to
that's
end up.
that's where it's interesting to me because like in a way, and this isn't fair or even correct, but in a way, Machado is a failed shortstop that got moved to third. And again, I know that's not correct and that's very harsh. Where Arenado just came up as a third baseman. You could also argue it the other way. They never even asked Arenado to play shortstop. So like what did that say about him? So it's
Yeah, I think in the case of Manny Machado, and if somebody who is, really locked in on Orioles history wants to fact check me on this, that's fine. Um, you know, I remember Manny Machado as being a guy who was a capable defender at shortstop, who they moved off of shortstop to accommodate the state of the roster at the time, as opposed to like that he was unqualified to handle the position defensively. So that's how, like, somebody can check me on that, but that's how I remember it.
if I
But he's
remember
getting
an old Red Sox stats tweet, because I was big on Machado before all the Pedroia stuff, and that's obviously a Red Sox centric thing. I agree he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, everything you just said. He became rough at short at the end and then became elite. Like, but he wasn't rough the whole time at short, but at the very end of the Orioles doing it, it hadn't looked like it had years prior. And I'm sure he got larger, put on weight as he continued to
sure.
mature. So I'm sure that was a factor, but I agree. He was definitely capable at short.
He's going to end up with 400 homers, and well north of 400 homers, honestly, because his contract goes on for a million more years. If they allow him to play in a wheelchair, he may hit 500 homers. But yeah, he's definitely getting in. Kilk Pedron 22 said, with Jay Hayes' logic, no player who's played for a bad team would ever be in the Hall of Fame. How is it Salvy's fault he plays for the Royals? So I just want to clarify that point quickly. It's not the crux of my argument against Salvador Perez. So I just want to make that clear. It's like bullet point number 15. But my point wasn't that a player for a bad team can't make the Hall of Fame and or that a player performing for a bad team is meaningless. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Salvador Perez has been the worst qualified batter in Major League Baseball this year by wins above replacement, by far, by a full half win. Okay, full half win. That's a little bit, doesn't make a lot of sense. by a half win. Okay. If the Royals were a serious baseball team who were trying to win baseball games or operated the organization that in a way that prioritized winning as opposed to prioritizing the twilight of a signature player's career, then I don't think he is given the opportunity to continue to hit a home run every week or drive in 5 runs every week to add to his counting stats. So it's not his fault that he plays for the Royals. It's actually to his benefit right now that he plays for them because he gets a much longer runway to perform, or in this case, not perform, than he would if he was playing for a team that had actual stakes in the 2026 season, or for that matter, in the 27 season or the 25 season.
I do think the 25 season, being a 30-100 guy, he was a league average.
Sure, that's
fine.
It
was a 100
he was fine
OPS
last
plus.
year.
Like he was, but like that, I don't know was the Royals' fault.
Let's see. Let's catch up on the rest. Paul Goldschmidt, I think is definitely getting into the Hall of Fame. I think the Freeman Votto Goldschmidt triumvirate of first baseman. Obviously, they're not going to go in at the same time.
No.
And it wasn't like a direct contemporary thing, but I think all 3 of them will be honored. I think it's fascinating debate I think Freddie will eventually get to a place where his career is probably definitively the most productive. But then you can have separate, like, whose peak would you want and stuff like that, where I think unless you're putting a lot of weight in into Freddie's 2020 season, you probably can't make the argument for him. So no, but Goldschmidt's getting in.
Yeah.
Teixeira, yes, there is a similarity to Olsen in the case. I definitely understand where you're coming from there. I would say that so it's an interesting name to bring up because what basically has to happen for Matt Olson to be the Mark Teixeira equivalent is he needs to stop producing now. It needs to stop. No, seriously,
today.
His Hall of Fame case basically needs to stop, grind to a halt now, because Mark Teixeira, it was not his last productive season in his age 32, which is what Olsen is in right now, but it was the end of his productive run of consistency, because the very next year he was bad and hurt. The following year after that, he came back. He was basically just bad. He had a renaissance season in 2015 at age 35 of the Yankees, came back at age 36, was actively harmful to winning, and then was out of baseball after 2016. So his Hall of Fame case was built through his age 32 season, and through his age 32 season, he had 47.9 wins above replacement. To refresh, Matt Olson is at, I think, 44.4. That's what I said.
That sounds right.
44.4. So he is tracking, again, just by one metric. F4 may say something different. I'm not going to pull it up. It's probably close enough. That he's tracking behind Mark Teixeira, or we'll just call it the same. So by the end of the season, because he's got another month and change. So let's say he adds another win and a half, gets to 6 wins above replacement, 46, basically the same. And then we'll see what he does from there. But yeah, there was a time where Mark Teixeira felt like you could be having a Hall of Fame case for him. I'm not sure. I think kind of like the cultural expectations for first base were still kind of out of whack at the time, to the point where I don't think anybody actually was thinking about Mark Teixeira as a Hall of Fame caliber player through age 32. But I think had he continued on a more normal decline, or at least normal decline for a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
I think we would have gotten to the point where we had the conversation with him, because even like it feels like, wow, really? Like, but like the Todd Helton conversation was not exactly smooth sailing. It's not like Todd Helton came up and everybody was like, well, Todd Helton, okay, like it's just into the Hall of Fame, sir. You know, it's like it was that there was some intellectual grinding that had to happen there for Todd Helton's candidacy to kind of work itself through. And I think Teixeira would have landed in a similar place, because like there's only 10, 11 wars separating Teixeira from Helton. So if he had a more gentle decline phase where he gets better work out of his 33, 34, 36 seasons and then is done, yeah, Mark Teixeira is probably in the Hall of Fame. And, you know, I hope they have the stable ready.
Again, where's Jared tonight? He's at Fenway raising money for the Jimmy Fund, and they just got an update on Nesson. The first time in history they've crossed the $6 million mark. So shout out everyone who donated to that. Broke last year's record, which I believe broke 2008's record. So last year was the first time they had hit the $5 million mark. This year they hit the $6 million mark. So that's big. That's huge.
That is huge. Congratulations.
Someone asked very non statistical question. King Jadora said, who do you think is the generational bag getter in MLB a la Kirk Cousins? And my mind immediately went to what Jake said, which is Kyle Tucker. But then I sat with like who Kirk Cousins is, because Kirk Cousins is like a good quarterback. It's not a Hall of Fame quarterback, but especially the first time the Vikings paid him, he was like a very above average quarterback. I see Eric Hosmer. I see Anthony Rendon, which I like. He definitely stole money from the Angels. I don't know that he is. That would be to me insulting to Kirk. Like Kirk Cousins continued to be solid. Someone said Xander. I don't think Xander. Like I love Xander. Yeah, it's probably the right answer. You Darvish, perhaps, the way he kept stacking deals, and I think is still technically being paid.
I wanted one of the answers that I was coming. Patrick Corbin was a name that came to me.
Okay.
You know, it's not. It doesn't quite work because, you know, Kirk
Instantly
Cousins has
awful.
had like the multiple deals thing, whereas Patrick Corbin has, you know, made the vast majority of his money with that one contract. But
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, like this idea that a guy was paid an enormous amount of money, and it was mostly predicated on the idea of the person, as opposed to like this long ever realization of greatness. Like Patrick Corbin obviously had his moments. I'm trying to think of other examples here. Ultimate bag getter.
Like late career Scherzer kept getting paid for what he had done with the Nationals.
He's too good though. He's too good.
Yeah, no, I agree. It doesn't work. Story got paid once. It's not him. Charlie Morton. Not a name
Charlie
I was
Morton's
thinking of, but it's interesting.
It's not bad.
Are there any relievers who have like just gotten like a bunch of 2-year deals? No, not Schwarber. Jack Flaherty? That's interesting. Someone also asked, is Ohtani going to be the second unanimous Hall of Famer? I wouldn't be shocked if one asshole didn't vote for him.
Yeah. Yeah, my expectations for people are just through the fucking basement. Yeah. Name a thing. Yeah.
There's also got to be someone before Otani who should garner that level, but they're not coming to mind. Verlander, Kershaw. Kershaw should be unanimous, right? Someone going to hold his postseason
Yes.
against him, like at that stage. Judge, we think Judge gets in. That's interesting. That's a different debate. Oh, Pujols. Pujols should be unanimous. What's the argument against Pujols? Too good, too immediately.
I mean, people make the lied about his age thing. They still bring that up, but like, what does that have to do with it?
That makes his final season even more impressive, I'd argue.
That's an issue for Artie Moreno, as far as I'm concerned. That has nothing to fucking do with me. Like, he's in the, like, well, who cares? I don't care.
I don't care at all.
So yeah, what's the case? I mean, are we already losing sight of the fact that Albert Pujols is like legitimately one of the greatest players of all fucking time? Like, I talk about what you do in your 20s is what builds it, and what you do in your 30s is gravy. Like, I mean, we're still talking about, you know, one of the greatest runs through age 30 in baseball fucking history. Not in recent baseball history, not in, you know, Cardinals baseball history. It's, that guy was so fucking good.
Took him entirely too long to win that first MVP.
Yeah, he was like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm still not the MVP. I've been here for
yeah, I've been here for 4 years. What gives? Fourth place finish, second place finish, third place finish. Finally, they were like, all right, here. Damn, leave us alone, man.
The only players through age 30 in baseball, position players to produce more through age 30 than Albert Pujols are Ty Cobb, Rogers Hornsby, Mickey Mantle, A-Rod, Trout, and Mel Ott. And I would note that every single one of those players debuted at least 2 seasons prior to Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols did not debut until his age 21 season. Mel Ott debuted in his age 17. A-Rod and Ty Cobb debuted in their age 18. And Trout, the Mick, and Rogers Hornsby all debuted in their age 19. So like that's they should not be punished for that. Like debuting when they're but it does add to the idea that, like, you know, debuting at 21 is incredibly impressive, but he didn't even have the runway that some of these other guys did. And like how his age factors into that, I'm not really too sure. But if you look at just what players accomplished from their age 21 to age 30 seasons, so the period that Albert Pujols was eligible to be racking up major league statistics, in the history of baseball, the only players to produce more WAR over that stretch are Ty Cobb, Rogers Hornsby, and Mickey Mantle. He's 2 wins above replacement ahead of Hank Aaron. He is 4 wins above replacement ahead of Babe Ruth. He's 5 wins above replacement ahead of Alex Rodriguez. Like, that's who Albert Pujols was. And that is a level of production that I know for those of us who lived through it, it's easy to say now that it doesn't matter. It was painful watching the second half of Albert Pujols' career, knowing what we had just witnessed. And, you know, I didn't care about the money part, but there is something aesthetically unpleasing about a guy having a record-setting or near record-setting contract and performing to a point where his contract becomes the overwhelming topic of conversation. Like it's not my money. I don't care about it because of that. I care about it because we then end up spending a ton of time talking about how this all-time great player is an overpaid bum. And
Right.
what we didn't talk about when he was winning MVPs and being one of the greatest players of all time in St. Louis was, damn, how underpaid is this guy? Hey, remember that initial $100 million contract that Albert Pujols signed that covered basically his entire peak? He was one of the most underpaid players in the history of baseball, certainly one of the most underpaid players in the history of $100 million contracts during that stretch. The Cardinals, the modern era of Cardinals greatness was built on the back of Albert Pujols' pen to paper on that contract, because if they don't get that, they don't get the Albert Pujols era that they got. And so the last of which culminated in an actual fucking World Series. So like you literally, like, say what you want about the first couple of years of Pujols' career, like they would have had to eventually trade Albert Pujols if they did not get him under contract. And so the last one for sure shit ain't happening in 2011. So if anybody needs to refresh themselves on Albert Pujols' role throughout the postseason that year, I would encourage you to do so, because he was not a gentleman who was along for the ride in 2011. And in fact, posted a postseason cumulative in 18 games and 82 plate appearances of a 353, 463, 691 triple slash line. That's a 1155 OPS. And that, of course, includes his, well, it includes a lot of stuff, but it was an all-time great postseason for Albert Pujols. And yeah, just been a long time actually since I've done a reminiscing on Albert Pujols' career. So I'm glad we just kind of went down that hole for a second.
He's as good as it gets. As good as it gets. When he hit free agency, I remember writing for whatever I was writing for at the time. If he signs with the Red Sox, he will break Bonds' record. Like I genuinely felt that hitting at Fenway would have been enough to get him over that bar. And I still kind of believe that as I sit here today.
Yeah.
Like he still finished over 700, which does not get enough attention.
No.
There are so few people. It's what, 8 who have hit 600?
Well, and I think people were like, there was an unfairness to Barry Bonds's, like people talk about, oh, the single season record, like the PEDs, like the level that he was performing at generally when he was breaking the records also spoiled people, because you like momentarily became conditioned to the idea that like, oh, a guy setting home run records doesn't have to be a decrepit asshole, kind of like gimping around the stadium, and he can be one of the best players in baseball still. And in fact, that's the anomaly. That what's more likely, to your point about the 8 players who have hit, or 9 players rather, who have hit 600 or more homers, is that most of those guys, when they are crossing the milestone homer marks, are not particularly good, or are at the very best diminished versions of themselves, as anybody would be at 37, 38, 39, 40 years old. But like, that Pujols and A-Rod suffered from this too, where it was like, there was a hard to watch element to it there at the end, but it's like, you can't really have it both ways. You cannot have guys make runs at 700 fucking homers and also be like these live dynamic players at the end.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way. So if you want Willie Mays to get to 660, if you want Albert Pujols to get to 703, you have to endure like Albert Pujols like basically having plantar fasciitis all over his body, like
Right.
just being plantar fasciitis. So, and you know, I'm for one, I don't know when we're going to get it again, but there's a part of me that is like yearns for a guy to climb up that sort of list. And for me, for an older version of myself to get a chance to appreciate a guy making that sort of run, because when Bonds was doing it, it was what it was. It was kind of its one-off thing. And I think when A-Rod was doing it, A-Rod is like the last athlete maybe that I just can't shake, that I just don't like him.
Right.
And like, I don't like his vibe, and I don't like anything about him. And I don't care about athletes like that anymore. I care about the sport and stuff like that, but just not on a personal level. But when he was doing it, it was more about like A-Rod's just kind of like a gross shell of himself or whatever. And he's like the Yankees and it's all sort of thing. And like Pools, the end was kind of cool, but like, the fifth, fourth, third, and second to last chapters were all kind of ugly, you know what I mean? And generally unpleasant. So, but I think I would appreciate it a little bit more if I got to, experience Albert Pujols going for 700 homers now at my age currently. Hopefully we get a shot. So Stanton's at 456. So that's dead in the water. Trout's at 424. That's dead in the water for the conversation that we're having.
Correct.
Aaron Judge is at 385. Him missing, I mean, it goes without saying, him missing the vast majority of this season is just such a fucking massive blow to what his final number could have been. Because how many home runs is Aaron Judge likely going to finish the season with? So he's got 17 homers. So his injury this season presumably cost him somewhere on the total of like 30 to 40 homers, probably. Yeah. I think is probably the number. So, then you're looking at, he's going into next season at, 420 instead of 385 or 390. Like that's a huge difference in terms of trying to find a pathway to 500, 600, 700 homers. And so, you just keep moving down the list. Freddie Freeman's obviously, like, none of these guys are even remotely candidates for any sort of, like, I'm trying to find, like, what the fuck? I'm trying to find like a legitimate person who could make a run at something resembling.
Right. Otani's already too old and like not close anyways.
I guess it's just Soto. It's really just Soto. Soto has 265 homers and he's 27 years old.
Was it James Wood? Like,
yeah. If you want to go that far down, for sure.
Yeah, like that's. And Judge also another one of those guys. 2020 season, like it was the year before he became like this version of Aaron Judge, but he had 27 the 2 years prior. He had 52 and 17 in that his breakout year. But even if we just cap him at the 27 for that year, that's, what can I do? Easy, 16 extra home runs off of his total. Like that alone would have him at 400 right now.
And I want to see that shit. You know what I mean?
So he could be realistically 460 right now.
And then you're really talking, right?
Yeah. Jordan, no, I mean, Jordan would have to, well, how old's Jordan right now? 28?
It sounds right. Uh, 29, just turned 29.
Okay. That hurts. Yep. He needed to be 28 there. Yeah, Jordan's not. not an option, really. Yikes. Someone also asked me which basketball court in my area of Boston I grew up. The answer is Fallon Field. That's just the answer. Someone also asked how old we were during the McGuire, Sosa, Griffey summer. I was 9. And it was everywhere. You could not escape it. Does Bryce get to 500? What's he at now? 388? Yeah. Yeah, probably. Four more 30 home run seasons. Off topic, but the Mariners are such a bummer this year, dude. That's the Mariners.
Such a bummer.
Just kind of what
They're
they
so
do.
depressing. Sounds like you already got the report that like big changes are coming.
Isn't this exactly what they want? 500 over a decade stretch? Like they're definitely doing that. You said at the top of the show, you said you had some trivia. We've been answering the folks.
I did say I had some trivia. Let's see. I almost want to. We're now so close to the end of this game here that I almost want to save it for the next. It's like an evergreen.
Oh yeah, of course.
Jake, I don't even want to say it because I don't want people to go look at it. It was work done by somebody else that I was just going to give them. I was obviously going to shout them out, but it's a perfect for this thing. I'm actually going to save it because it's also related to the postseason. So if we never get to it on JTN, I can save it for a postseason stream where it'll be perfect. But
sure. Also, people are upset I didn't hit the horn for Mickey Gasper's second home run in as many days, and that's fair. Mickey Gasper, that's a guy who's been craving horn.
Mm-hmm.
How do I feel about Roman? Thrilled. I wasn't at points this year. I didn't think he was coming back. It certainly didn't feel positive every time. They're like, "Yep, tried to hold a bat again," and he's in the hospital. Like it didn't seem like a guy who was going to be coming back. How's the move going today? Today was the first day I felt like I was in a house. I don't have to go sleep on inflatable furniture tonight. Everything's coming up Millhouse.
Yeah, it's huge.
I did see a cloud today that I thought was a tornado, and it had like accompanying thunder that made it seem very tornado-ish. So I didn't care for that. Neither did the dog asleep behind me. He was not a fan of anything that was going on in that. What prompted the move? Weather and taxes. 2 for 2. Super loud clouds. Hey, listen, a lot of people were like, why would you move to Florida in the summer? One, like my daughter's in school in Florida starts like a month before the Northeast does. So we did have to get down here at a certain time for that. Two, I actually think it was easier because it was really fucking hot in Maine before I left. Obviously, it's not the same level of hot, but it was hot. I'm not in Texas. Confirmed, not Texas. The pods had held up pretty well. The things inside of them. When I opened one of them,
I'll be right back. Hold on a second.
yeah, go for it. When I opened one of them, like a bunch, like a bag full of like hangers fell out, and like a couple of small things. One of the boxes I packed, I didn't tape the bottom well, and so my air fryer fell out and just exploded. So I have to get a new one of those. Other than that, watch out for those huntsman spiders. There's some I gotta look up what a hunt. I probably don't want to do that near bed. There are a couple of spiders. Huntsman spider. Oh, okay. Is this the Australia boy? Oh, these are in. I don't like the look of this guy at all. Where do you live, Huntsman spider? If you guys are here, I'm moving back immediately. Let's see. Huntsman spider, Florida. Uh, Large, fast-moving brown spider. They're not aggressive and not dangerous to humans. All right, so the ones in Florida seem like good guys. Okay. Huntsman spider in Florida, good guy. Wolf spider, bad guy. No gators yet. I haven't seen any gators. The biggest surprise, listen, I meant to say it on mixtape this week. Biggest surprise about Florida so far. The spider webs I have walked through, much stronger than the ones in the Northeast. Like they are weaving some fucking tense webs down here.
It's a good nugget. I've never heard that before.
No, no one warned me of that. I feel like the Gators get all the pub and highlights. Yeah, dense ass spider webs. I don't
Some,
I got two. I got like there's like a neighborhood like light pole out in my lawn, and then there's a tree next to it. So there's two giant webs that have clearly been there. This house had been empty before we moved into it. These guys made themselves quite a home, and it's like I'm not going near them. That was my thought too, Josh. Like it was because of the winds and the hurricanes. Like they have to be tougher, but the Northeast spiders I look at differently now. Their park factor for webs is Rocky's status in the Northeast. Florida was intended for bugs and shit, not humans. There's a town here that claims to be the oldest city in America. And I actually have to go to a wedding there in late September. And I can't wait to refute that claim to every local. There's just no fucking way. I just refuse to believe the oldest town in America, Jay Hay, isn't Florida. That doesn't sound right.
I could see that, like one of those forts, right?
I don't know if there's a fort there. It's St. Augustine. People are right. That is who claims it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, Pedro Menendez de Aviles. Yep. Yeah, see, there you go. It was a fort town originally.
Okay.
Bang! The drive was long. I would buckle in for a long drive if I were you, Peter Gardner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's far.
Especially if you're going all the way to Miami.
I was gonna say I did Maine, which is substantially more northern than New York City, to above Miami, but definitely, yeah, it was far. I broke it up over 4 days.
I've done the Florida drive. I've done East Coast to Florida. I've done Chicago to Florida.
How's that one? I have no real feel for like Chicago.
It's fine. It's like the same, basically.
Okay.
And I was going to like Jacksonville and Tallahassee, so I wasn't
Okay.
going that deep into the state.
Yeah. Oh, I did straight 95. I hugged the coast as much as I could. I stopped in Secaucus. Big mistake. I was just tired and it was the closest town where I was tired. Huge mistake. Then I was like, I'll bang this out over the next 2 days. So I looked for the exact midway point between Secaucus and where I live. And that was Fayetteville, North Carolina, which I was not going to be staying in at all. So I stayed in, why did I keep forgetting it? Rock Hill, North Carolina, which is like right over the border. That was lovely. That was pleasant. Then I stopped in Savannah, which was also lovely. And then I got here the next day.
Vietnam.
Fayetteville does not play. I would not have woken up with, like, it would have just been my steering wheel of my car left. Everything else would have been taken.
Great scene in Vacation. Just rolling through downtown St. Louis, whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. East St. Louis? Is there any other St. Louis?
Yep. Driven through East St. Louis. Can't say I'll be carving out much time for that in the future. So that was a one and done.
Yeah, East St. Louis. There was a stretch there where FS1 was trying to do 30 for 30 style documentaries. And I went to a screening for one of them, and it was about a high school football team from East St. Louis, and it was as grim gets. They no, it wasn't a fun road trip at all. The only reason I drove was because that was how I got my 2 dogs here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done that. So I didn't like get to see any of these towns. I got to see like the area around my hotels. And from Virginia on, largely the same. Everything you saw. And the final day driving was the trade deadline. So that was hell for me personally.
Well, we got 3 outs left in this here stream. Let's all enjoy each other. Let's just make sure we soak it up, okay? Okay.
It's big. This was a game there for a little bit. After that grand slam, it was 4-3 D-backs. Red Sox immediately climbed back on top. Adley home run to tie it. Durbin taking home on a pass ball. And it's since somewhat turned into a laugher. 9-4, we sit. Wyatt Olds making his debut for the Sox. Did he come back in the Benintendi trade? Is that where Wyatt Olds came from? Or was it Schreiber? It might have been Schreiber. How did you get here? Debut was yesterday. Clearly didn't see that. My bad. That was a blowout. I didn't know we used another pitcher. Why are they pitching him back to back then? Why are they doing that?
Thoughts on John Rocker? I mean, just good dude. Just like rock solid guy.
Wyatt Mills was in one of the Kansas City Boston trades. How could I forget?
Out with the olds, in with the mills, yeah.
Folks. Guys starving for outs.
I mean, to the most recent question from Goated Bear, Salvador Perez is not at the Baines meter yet. So
I knew that was coming.
Does he have 3 more wins above replacement in him? he's quite literally moving in the wrong direction. He's further away from the Baines meter today than he was at this time last year. So, do you think Salvador Perez is going to the Hall of Fame? Because then that is your answer. Because I don't think he's getting 3 more wins above replacement. Yeah, tonight was the Sal Perez stream. It's been a long time coming. No, we had some good in-depth baseball combos that we wouldn't otherwise have gotten to. So that's good. Kind of dig in, ramble, see where it takes us, poke and prod.
Will you retire the Baines meter and rename it the Salvi meter should he get in with a lower career?
Yeah, I'll say no, because I've grown to have such a fondness for the whole Harold Baines thing, even though it's not really been, it hasn't been a thing this whole season. But yeah, if somebody gets in with fewer than that, that's going to be, we're going to have to figure out how to treat that, because that's going to have to be a thing. But no retiring.
Was Bregman the last one to pass it, or was there someone else? I feel like there was someone else.
Who snuck in at the end of last season?
Was it Marte?
It was somebody. No, it was Real Muto.
Yeah, the Hall of Famer, the future Hall of Famer. Yeah,
correct. And he got in on like the last day or the last week of the season. And if I could do it over again, I wish he would not have done it, because it would have given us somebody this year to celebrate instead of like the 7th person of last year to celebrate. Hosmer's not going to get into the Hall of Fame.
That'll do it.
That'll do it, folks.
The Boston Red Sox, 1 game away from sweeping the Diamondbacks right out of town. There's only one person on this week's Section 10 predicted. Could have been any of us. I'm not going to say who. But yeah, the Mickey Gasper night, the Wyatt Olds night, Salvador Perez night. All these players on the same tier in certain people's eyes. We'll be back next week. I think with a full house.
I believe so.
I think. I mean, the servers can't handle this much star power, so we gotta bring in the cooler Jerry Ice Carabas to cool things down next week. But I enjoyed it. I hope everyone else enjoyed it too.
Yes.
We will be back.